Chapter 1479. 10 golden runes. Amidst the endless yellow fog, the slaughter was carried out silently. Battles were spreading out almost every moment, and the aftermath of the battle was surging. 3 days had passed, and half of the names on the light screen had dimmed. However, the dimmed names didn't necessarily mean that they were dead. Some of them were lucky enough to be sent out. After being defeated, those who were sent out decisively took out their saint luck and gave it to the winner. If they didn't have a death grudge, the winner of the battle wouldn't casually kill his opponent. Someone has reached 10 golden runes. Suddenly, a golden light soared into the sky. Cao Rong raised his head and looked at the golden light. His voice was so loud that everyone on the square platform could hear it clearly. "Who is it?" Cao Rong's announcement caused an uproar. They looked around, wanting to see who the owner of the 10 golden runes was. "It's Qing Longzi. Look, he's about to advance." Suddenly, a surprised voice was transmitted over. Immediately, everyone followed that person's instructions and shot their gazes over. On a rock to the east of the yellow fog world, Qing Longzi silently stood there. Between his eyebrows, 10 golden lines flickered with a blazing golden light. A vast saint aura spread out from Qing Longzi's body and soared into the sky. It was like a golden rod piercing through the sky. Looking at Qing Longzi, who was covered in golden light, Sapphire Shaw smiled and said, "It seems that Qing Longzi is about to advance to the Glimpse Profound Saint realm. In the Yellow Mist world, the Glimpse Profound Saint realm is the most terrifying realm. Who can compete with Qing Longzi?" Elder Reiwa's eyes flashed in surprise. The smile on Sapphire Shaw's face grew wider, but his words were modest. "Isn't Ruhua still missing 1 golden rune? If he can gather 10 golden runes, he should be able to advance to the second Nirvana Saint realm," Sapphire Shaw said with a smile. Elder Reiwa nodded and looked at the rock not far from where Qing Longzi was. There was another figure standing there. It was none other than Yang Ruhua. Yang Ruhua stared enviously at Qing Longzi, who was in the midst of breaking through, and muttered in a low voice, "I'm still missing 1 golden pattern. I must gather 10 golden patterns so that I can directly break through to the second profound Nirvana Profound Saint realm." Qing Longzi's breakthrough caused a huge commotion and attracted the attention of all the cultivators in the Yellow Mist world. Whoosh! Whoosh! They all gathered 100 meters away from Qing Longzi, not daring to get close. Qing Longzi's strength was terrifying, and they didn't dare to act rashly. Moreover, Yang Ruhua was standing guard not far from Qing Longzi. Whoosh! Senior brother Qing Longzi is. These 4 were the disciples of the Blue Dragon Hall. The one in the lead looked skinny, but the aura on his body was extremely terrifying. He should have reached the semi-saint realm. Brother Qing Longzi is about to break through. "You guys wait for a while," Yang Ruhua said indifferently. The 4 disciples looked at each other with cautious eyes. Immediately, the golden runes on their foreheads flickered and materialized into their respective weapons. They were secretly on guard against the other cultivators gathering around them. Qing Longzi was about to break through, so they naturally had to guard him well. If he was disturbed by others, then all their efforts would be in vain. This Qing Longzi is really powerful. He actually gathered 10 golden runes so quickly. When he breaks through to the Nirvana Saint realm, I'm afraid that no one in the Yellow Mist world will be his opponent." The Flower Fairy and 2 other women stood in a withered tree. Their beautiful eyes stared at Qing Longzi. The Flower Fairy already had 7 golden runes, but compared to Qing Longzi and Yang Ruhua, there was still a certain gap. Although the Flower Fairy was extremely eager for the golden runes on Qing Longzi's body, she also understood that not to mention Qing Longzi, even Yang Ruhua was enough to make him suffer. Not only the Flower Fairy, but Gui Sho, Shozi, Yaksho, Yun Ran and Yang Yi, the top geniuses of the Nether Realm, also gathered around. However, they were all on guard against each other. After all, they were all monstrous geniuses of the Nether Realm, and their strength was extremely terrifying. Coupled with the cruelty of the 3rd stage of the competition for Saint Luck, it was basically impossible to trust anyone who didn't unify their forces. After all, no one knew if they would suddenly attack and seize their Saint Luck. "Zhuowen, what should we do?" On another rock, Long Tian whispered to Zhuowen. Long Tien was a descendant of the Riker and had a natural hatred for the Blue Dragon Hall. Now, he couldn't wait to kill Qinglongzi and the other disciples of the Blue Dragon Hall. Wait. Zhuowen shook his head slightly, and then his mind moved slightly, as if he was communicating with something. On the other side, Mo Wen, who was behind Gui Sho, narrowed his eyes slightly, and wisps of demonic qi rolled out. Mo Wen, what's wrong with you? Gui Sho tilted his head slightly, and a pair of soul-stirring eyes stared coldly at Mo Wen. Nothing. Mo Wen was expressionless as he answered indifferently, and the demonic qi on his body gradually withdrew. Hearing this, Gui Sho frowned. Just now, he could feel an extremely terrifying demonic qi gushing out of Mo Wen's body. On the other side, a subtle smile appeared at the corner of Buddha's mouth, and the Buddha's light around him became more intense, like a slowly rising sun. Eldest senior brother is about to break through, and has reached a critical moment. We have to protect him well. The skinny disciple of the Blue Dragon Hall also felt the sudden intense demonic qi on Qinglongzi's body. He narrowed his eyes and shouted to the other disciples. Yes. The remaining 3 disciples nodded. They didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. Their eyes revealed vigilance as they secretly took precautions. Long Tien, you go first. I'll wait for an opportunity, Zhuowen said in a low voice. Long Tien nodded, and then took a step forward, directly rushing towards Qinglongzi. Stop him. The 4 disciples of the Blue Dragon Hall narrowed their eyes to needles. The weapons formed by the golden patterns in their hands exploded with blazing golden light, and they all blasted towards Long Tien. Long Tien coldly snorted. He grabbed with his right hand, and the 7 golden patterns between his eyebrows separated from his body, turning into a large golden halberd that was 10 feet long. Boom! He suddenly swept his right hand, and golden light filled the sky. Countless golden halberd shadows swirled in all directions, and crushed down like a mountain. Stop him. The 4 disciples of the Blue Dragon Hall were also capable. The weapons in their hands continuously blasted out, forming an airtight golden barrier that barely blocked Long Tien's attack. You're courting death. Yang Ruhua coldly sneered. He took a step forward, and his right fist flickered with blazing golden light, and blasted towards Long Tien. This fist carried the power of 10,000 katis, as if it could collapse the entire sky and smash it into pieces. Feeling the terrifying power of this fist, Long Tien's face changed greatly. He swept the golden halberd in his right hand, and tried to block Yang Ruhua's fist. However, the 4 disciples of the Blue Dragon Hall were extremely clever. They desperately attacked, and actually managed to entangle Long Tien. For a moment, Long Tien became Yang Ruhua's living target. Long Tien is courting death if he goes alone. The flower fairy curled her lips and sneered. After all, Yang Ruhua had gathered 9 golden runes. Her power was vast and mighty. She was much stronger than the average warrior. Although Long Tien also had 7 golden runes, he was probably not Yang Ruhua's opponent. In the flower fairy's view, Long Tien's attack was simply unwise. Attack. The moment Yang Ruhua attacked, Mo Wen, who had been standing behind Gui Sho, suddenly jumped out. Like a wisp of green smoke, he swept in front of Yang Ruhua in an instant. At the same time, the Buddhist rune on the other side also burst with golden light. A huge light wheel appeared behind his head, and he descended like a god or a demon. Mo Wen and Buddhist rune descended together, and instantly blocked in front of Yang Ruhua. Boom! The 3 collided, and an extremely terrifying fluctuation erupted. Immediately, Yang Ruhua retreated a few steps, while Mo Wen and Buddhist rune retreated more than 10 steps. This, Gui Sho was stunned. He did not expect that Mo Wen would not listen to his orders and act on his own. Taimo, what's going on? As he spoke, Gui Sho's gaze landed on the black-robed Taimo Lord behind him. Taimo Lord frowned slightly, his eyes flashing. The moment Mo Wen and Buddhist rune moved out together, he'd already guessed that Zhuowen might be in this world of yellow fog. My master has returned. Gui Sho, I will also go help Mo Wen. Taimo shook his head and took a step forward. Under Gui Sho's stunned gaze, he also shot out. He joined Mo Wen and Buddhist rune to fight Yang Ruhua together. This Gui Sha was more and more confused, especially about the master that Tai Mo Lord had mentioned. Just who was this person? Tai Mo and Mo Wen were both proud and arrogant people. Gui Sha had wanted to force them to submit to him on the deserted island, but they'd both refused. Now, hearing Tai Mo's master for the first time, how could Gui Sha not be surprised? Master? What kind of person can make Tai Mo recognize him as his master? As he spoke, Gui Sha's cold gaze swept across the crowd. He knew that the master that Tai Mo spoke of was probably hiding in the crowd. With Mo Wen, Buddhist rune, and Tai Mo Lord working together, Yang Ruhua's original advantage was immediately reversed. She even seemed to be at a disadvantage. Damn it! Yang Ruhua cursed in a low voice. Swoosh! A figure suddenly flashed out explosively like a vigorous cheetah, and it instantly tore through space and flashed over to Long Tian's side. Spurt! Spurt! A golden spear swept through the air, and the 4 disciples of the Blue Dragon Hall were pierced through by the spear. Blood spurted out as their heads separated from their bodies. Gurgle! 4 heads immediately rolled on the ground. Blood spurted in the air. It looked extremely terrifying and mournful. Chapter 1480. Completely exposed 4 streaks of golden light shot into Zhuowen's forehead. Immediately, the 8 golden runes on his forehead began to spread, eventually turning into 9 golden runes. Zhuowen's saintly might became far too terrifying in an instant. He was like a savage beast, vaguely showing signs of suppressing Yang Ruhua. Yang Ruhua felt extremely aggrieved. Mo Wen, Fu Wen, and Grand Demonic Lord had joined forces. Their battle prowess was extremely terrifying, vaguely showing signs of suppressing him. Damn it! Yang Ruhua roared. Golden runes shot out from his forehead, forming a huge golden sword. He slashed out with his right hand. The golden light from the sword flickered like stars in the night sky. It was extremely powerful. Thump thump thump. Mo Wen, Fu Wen, and Grand Demonic Lord's expressions changed drastically. They stumbled back as shock filled their eyes. They had never thought that Yang Ruhua would be able to unleash such terrifying power with the power of the golden runes. All 3 of you must die. Yang Ruhua roared at the sky. Like a savage beast, he strode over step by step. The huge golden sword appeared. It was over 30 meters long. Afterwards, Yang Ruhua swung his right hand. The huge sword fell from the sky, smashing towards Mo Wen and the others like a mountain of gold. Ding! The moment the golden sword came crashing down, a golden spear shot over and blocked the sword. The crisp sound of metal clashing rang out. The terrifying sword that came crashing down was immediately blocked by the long spear. Yang Ruhua's eyes narrowed. He stared coldly at Zhuowen and said, "You're called Wen Zhuo, right? Why are you meddling in my business?" "Meddling in your business?" Zhuowen shook his head and continued, "I'm not meddling in your business. I'm here to take your dog life." Yang Ruhua was an accomplice in the kidnapping of Mu Chenxue. Coupled with what Yang Ruhua had done back then, it would be strange if Zhuowen let him go. "Take my dog life." Yang Ruhua was stunned when he heard that. His blood surged and his eyes spat fire. The young man before him was far too arrogant. He actually dared to say that he would take his dog life. All right, you're dead," Yang Ruhua bellowed. Then, he dashed towards Zhuowen like a giant bird spreading its wings. Zhuowen stood silently, his right hand holding the golden spear tightly as his right foot suddenly stomped on the ground, and he shot out explosively like an arrow that had left the bow. Boom! The 2 of them brushed past each other, and the golden spear and sword collided, erupting with a blazing golden light. Ding ding ding! The speed of the 2 was extremely fast. They were like 2 phantoms as they clashed with each other. Strange and clear sounds of clanging and clanging erupted in the sky. Every time they collided, an extremely terrifying power would erupt and spread out. Go and destroy Qing Longzi's breakthrough. With a thought, Zhuowen's Buddhist and Devil Dao clones instantly shot out explosively. They split into 2 directions and flashed towards Qing Longzi, who was sitting cross-legged on the rock. Not good. Yang Ruhua's gaze changed. He had also noticed Zhuowen and Mo Wen. Just as he was about to turn around and attack, Zhuowen's spear had already arrived and heavily smashed onto Yang Ruhua's body. Puff! Yang Ruhua spat out a mouthful of blood and immediately fell from the sky, heavily smashing onto the ground. Swoosh swoosh. The moment Yang Ruhua fell to the ground, Mo Wen and Buddha Dao clones had unknowingly flown out and smashed onto the ground not far away from Zhuowen. Zhuowen, I think that you shouldn't be too arrogant. Do you think that I don't know your identity? An indifferent voice slowly rang out. At this moment, Qinglong's eyes were filled with indifference as he walked over step by step with an expressionless face. Zhuowen? This Wen Zhuo is Zhuowen? As soon as Qinglong's words came out, not only were the numerous participants in the Yellow Fog world stunned, even the other participants and leaders of the 9 Netherworld realm on the 9 large square platforms in the outside world. Although many people in the 9 Netherworld realm had never seen Zhuowen's true appearance, they had all heard of his name. In fact, Zhuowen's name was extremely resounding in the 9 Netherworld realm. Just the fact that he possessed a celestial saint artifact was enough to tempt anyone in the 9 Netherworld realm. This kid is actually Zhuowen. Wen Zhuo is Zhuowen. This kid might really be Zhuowen. This kid is really bold to actually dare to come to the 9 Netherworld assembly. Elder Reiwa narrowed his eyes and said coldly. Sapphire Shaw was much calmer. He had already guessed Zhuowen's identity long ago, but he didn't say it out loud. Zhuowen, this little bastard really came. Wu Hu clenched his fists tightly and said in a low voice. Just one sentence from Qinglongzi was not enough to convince everyone. However, when they thought about how Wen Zhuo and Zhuowen's names had only changed in order, everyone immediately believed him. Especially the saints of the 5 great secluded realms who had joined forces with Zhu Tianzong to attack Zhuowen. Because from the performance of the second stage, this Wen Zhuo had always been looking for trouble with the disciples of the 5 great powers, and he basically didn't leave anyone alive. If he didn't have any enmity with the 5 great powers, Wen Zhuo wouldn't have repeatedly targeted the 5 great powers like this. Not only Wu Hu, many other martial warriors from the Netherrealm also started to become restless. Who didn't want a celestial saint artifact? However, because Cao Rong was currently in control of the 9 Netherworld sky platform, those restless martial warriors did not dare to act rashly. Zhuowen really came. What should we do now? On the square platform of the divine Nether Realm, Xiao Yu frowned as he stared at Yang Ji and the other two and asked. Sai, Zhuowen really came to participate in the 9 Nether Assembly. This is going to be troublesome. Jiang Xian said somewhat helplessly. Martial Uncle Yang Ji, what should we do? Xiao Yu's gaze fell on Yang Ji as he asked somewhat pleadingly. After all, Zhuowen was a disciple of their mysterious origin peak, and he was the second kid after Yuan Ji to comprehend the laws of the void. Xiao Yu really didn't want Zhuowen to fall just like that. Let's wait and see. Right now, the 9 Nether Assembly is still ongoing, so the others don't dare to act rashly. We'll make a decision after the 9 Nether Assembly ends. Yang Ji shook his head and sighed. He was very clear how tempting the immortal saint artifact on Zhuowen's body was. Once the 9 Nether Assembly ended, most of the martial warriors in the 9 great secluded realms would pounce towards Zhuowen like hungry wolves, in order to obtain the immortal saint artifact on the former's body and soar into the sky. Hearing Yang Ji's reply, Xiao Yu frowned, but there was nothing he could do. Xiao Yu was also clear that if their divine academy really helped Zhuowen, they would undoubtedly be surrounded and annihilated by countless martial warriors from the other 8 great secluded realms. Zhuowen. Lu Hantian suddenly rushed out and arrived in front of Zhuowen. Are you really Zhuowen? Zhuowen knew that his identity had been exposed, so he removed his disguise and returned to his original appearance. Lu Hantian's gaze relaxed, but he immediately said solemnly, Why did you come to the 9 Nether Assembly? It's not like you don't know your situation. The entire 9 Nether Realm is eyeing you covetously, you. Seeing the concern in Lu Hantian's eyes, Zhuowen's heart warmed. He shook his head and said, Big brother Han Tian, don't worry, the reason I came to the 9 Nether Assembly this time is to become a saint. Once I become a saint, even if I am not a match for the 9 Nether Realm, escaping will not be a problem. Lu Hantian was startled. He never thought that Zhuowen would be so confident, facing countless martial warriors from the 9 great secluded realms. He had the confidence to escape. It was truly inconceivable. Could it be? Lu Hantian's eyes lit up, as if he had thought of something. Zhuowen nodded his head, and sent a sound transmission. I have already completely refined the Azure Dragon Palace. Once I become a saint, I will be able to freely control the Azure Dragon Palace. Even Sapphire Shore will not be able to stop me. Now, I hope that Big Brother Han Tian can help me with this. I hope that all the disciples of the 5 great powers will be annihilated in the 3rd stage. Haha. Don't worry, I, your big brother, will definitely help you. Lu Hantian laughed and readily agreed. Tap tap tap. Qing Longzi walked over step by step and said to the surrounding people in a clear voice, everyone should know about Zhuowen, right? Back then, this person's name was spread all over the 9 Nether Realm. I'm sure everyone is clearly aware of what treasures this kid possesses. I won't beat around the bush. This kid hasn't become a saint yet, so he's utterly unable to bring out the might of such treasures. It's simply a waste for him to possess them. Why don't we join forces and kill this kid, then split everything on him equally? As for the treasure, it will depend on our strength. Whoever can snatch it will get it. As soon as these words were spoken, the geniuses of the other secluded realms who had gathered around all became restless. Qing Longzi is right, this kid has no power or influence. How can he be qualified to possess a saint artifact? Let's snatch it. Shozi was the first to agree. I agree with Qing Longzi. Yaksha said concisely. Haha. I can see that everyone is quite interested. As a woman, I naturally have no objections. The flower fairy giggled. Gui Sha narrowed his eyes and stared at Mo Wen and Tai Mo. This Zhuowen is the master of the 2 of you. Now, I'll give the 2 of you a chance. Follow me and kill this kid, and I'll absolve you of your crimes. You'll still be disciples of the deserted island. Mo Wen couldn't be bothered with Gui Sha, while Tai Mo Lord shook his head. Thank you for your kindness, senior brother Gui Sha, but we've decided to follow Master's footsteps. Ignorant fool, I gave you face, but you don't want it. Later, I'll kill you too. Gui Sha said coldly. Qing Longzi smiled and looked at Yang Yi and Yun Ran. These 2 represented the divine Netherrealm and the demon Netherrealm respectively. Brother Yang Yi, sister Yun Ran, what do you think of my suggestion? Before Yang Yi could speak, Jianan, who was beside him, cursed. Who do you think you are? We don't need you to tell us what to do. Brother Zhuo is a disciple of the divine Nether Academy. Even if you beat us to death, we won't do anything to him. Gatha, Mo Yang Wushang, Fu Yu, and the others all nodded seriously. Obviously, they wouldn't wallow in the mire with Qing Longzi. Qing Longzi wasn't angry. He looked at Yang Yi and asked, Brother Yang Yi, what do you think? Chapter 1481. Encirclement and suppression. Yang Yi, who had a lazy personality, suddenly uttered such crude words, causing the surrounding people to be stunned. Even Qing Longzi's face had stiffened on the spot, and his face was alternating between red and green. Yang Yi didn't pay any attention to Qing Longzi at all. He just led a few people from Divine Academy to Zhuowen's side. Jianan, Gatha, and Moyan Wushang were on good terms with Zhuowen, so they moved to Zhuowen's side. Zhuowen, you really are a troublemaker. Now you've offended the entire 9th Netherworld realm. Amazing. Yang Yi secretly gave Zhuowen a thumbs up and grinned. That look of his was very cunning. Zhuowen said gratefully, Thank you for your help, senior brother Yang Yi. It's nothing. We're both disciples of Divine Academy, so how can I, as your eldest senior brother, stand by idly when you're being bullied? Don't you think so? Yang Yi waved his hand. Qing Longzi snorted coldly, and then his gaze descended onto Yun Ran. He said, Sister Yun Ran, I presume your demon Netherrealm wants the immortal saint artifact as well. Why don't you join us? Senior sister. Wu Dai grabbed the corner of Yun Ran's clothes tightly and spoke in a slightly nervous manner. Yun Ran's beautiful eyes flashed slightly, and she said indifferently, Qing Longzi, our demon Netherrealm won't participate in this matter. Don't try to drag our demon god palace down with you. Qing Longzi frowned slightly. He was slightly surprised by Yun Ran's attitude. However, Wu Dai's expression changed slightly, and she said coquettishly, Senior sister, didn't you promise me that you would help Zhuowen? Yun Ran shook her head and said, The other nether realms are targeting Zhuoan right now, so we shouldn't get involved in this mess. Wu Dai's beautiful eyes dimmed, and she said coldly, if you won't help, then I will. As she spoke, Wu Dai took a step forward and shot out like a graceful butterfly. She instantly arrived by Zhuoan's side. Wu Di, come back. Yun Rant's beautiful eyes changed slightly. She followed Wu Dai and arrived at Zhuoan's place. Her pretty face was filled with shock and anger. I won't go with you. I want to fight alongside Master. Wu Dai coldly snorted. Is he your master? Yun Ran was startled and stared at Zhuoan with some annoyance. When the others saw this scene, their eyes narrowed. This Zhuoan really wasn't simple. First, the desolate nether realms Tai Mo and Mo Wen had recognized him as their master. Now, the demon netherrealm's rising star, Wu Dai, was also calling Zhuoan master. You stubborn lass. Yun Ran was so angry that she stomped her foot. Her pretty eyes flickered before she waved her hand and summoned the other demon serene realm disciples over. They then landed within the encirclement around Zhuoan. Fine. Today, I'll help you out for Wu Dai's sake, but this won't happen again. Yun Rant's beautiful eyes stared at Zhuoan with extreme hostility, causing Zhuoan to touch his nose a little awkwardly. This Yun Ran was tall and beautiful. Being stared at by such a great beauty, a trace of embarrassment rose in Zhuowen's heart. Qinglong's face immediately darkened. Originally, it was best if Yun Ran didn't care about this matter. Now that she had to help Zhuoan because of Wu Dai, Qinglongzi was naturally unhappy. Humph. You're overestimating yourselves. You think the divine nether realm and demon nether realm can protect this little bastard? Let me tell you, although this kid has a saint artifact, he can't even open a spirit ring here. In other words, this kid won't have a chance to use the saint artifact. You're simply courting death by following him, Qinglongzi said coldly. Do you know that you talk a lot of nonsense? Zhuoan said indifferently. Qinglong's face froze. Then, he laughed out of extreme anger. Good. You said it yourself. Today, you and everyone related to you will die. Attack! Qinglongzi shouted angrily. 10 golden runes shot out from between his eyebrows and formed a giant golden dragon. The giant golden dragon soared into the sky and turned into a dragon-head broadsword. He held it in his hand with terrifying might. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The moment Qinglongzi attacked, Yang Ruhua followed closely behind. Flower Fairy, Yakshaw, Shaozi, and Gui Shaw brought their respective disciples and rushed over. Leave Qinglongzi to me. You guys be careful. After Yang Yi finished speaking, he took a step forward and rushed towards Qinglongzi alone. 9 golden runes appeared between his eyebrows and finally formed a giant rod. Boom, boom, boom. Yang Yi swung the long rod and countless rod shadows filled the sky. They were like natural strong winds and looked extremely terrifying. Qinglongzi snorted coldly and slashed out with his dragon-head broadsword. The blade radiance was as dense as stars and swept towards the sky. Suddenly, the countless rod shadows collapsed inch by inch. Yang Yi, your ranking in the 9 Netherrealm has always been lower than mine. You're no match for me. Qinglongzi stood proudly and sneered at Yang Yi from the corner of his eyes. Oh, if my ranking is lower than yours, then so be it. Since you like fame so much, it's only right for you to be number 1, Yang Yi said indifferently. You're courting death. Yang Yi's words were full of sarcasm. Qinglong's face suddenly darkened. He took a step forward and continued to rush towards Yang Yi like an arrow released from a bow. Yang Yi, on the other hand, did not have the slightest bit of fear. He had the attitude of block soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. When Qinglongzi swept in front of him, he repeatedly smashed out with his long staff, forming a dense staff shadow attack. The moment Yang Yi and Qinglongzi fought, the others also swarmed over and attacked Zhuoan and the others. This Zhuoan is mine. None of you fight with me. Shaozi was the first to arrive and shouted at the others. Shaozi, you're not being kind. Whether this Zhuoan is yours or not is not up to you. Just give him to me, Yakshaw said coldly. This boy is mine. If you dare to fight for him, don't blame me, Gui Shaw, for being impolite, Gui Sha said. Haha, the three of you don't have to fight. Just give this boy to me, okay? I won't mistreat you after this. Flower Fairy's bell-like laughter rang out. She stared at the other three with a pair of charming eyes that seemed to be able to melt ice. However, Shazi, Yaksha, and Gui Sha turned a blind eye to Flower Fairy's charm. Their attitude was cold, which made Flower Fairy's pretty face stiffen. Zhuowen looked on coldly, watching Shazi and the other three haggling as if he was a persimmon that they could pinch at will. As for the rest of Zhuowen's people, they had already joined the battle and fought with the other disciples of the Nether Realm. The power of Saint Fate constantly exploded around them. It was extremely terrifying. The four of you don't have to fight. This boy is mine, Yang Ruhua. I'll make him suffer. While Shazi, Yaksha, Gui Sha, and Flower Fairy were arguing about Zhuowen, Yang Ruhua stepped forward and said coldly. As soon as Yang Ruhua arrived, the four of them narrowed their eyes. Gui Sha said coldly, Yang Ruhua, your appetite is too big. Are you sure you can deal with this boy? What does it have to do with you? Yang Ruhua said bluntly. Her tone directly angered Gui Sha, but he didn't lose his mind and fight with Yang Ruhua. After all, their target this time was Zhuowen. You don't have to fight. The five of you can come at me together. Suddenly, Zhuowen walked forward slowly and said coldly to Yang Ruhua and the other four. What? You want the five of us to come at you together? Yang Ruhua picked her ear as if she had heard the biggest joke. Even Gui Sha and the other three had a strange expression. Zhuowen was crazy. He dared to fight the five of them alone. I think you're scared out of your wits, right? You want the five of us to come at you together? You're overestimating yourself, hey. Shazi laughed strangely and immediately stepped into the void. He immediately used his assassination technique and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already behind Zhuowen, holding a golden dagger in his hand. This golden dagger was the weapon that the golden tattoo on Shazi's forehead materialized. You're dead. Shazi licked his lips and his eyes were filled with violence. He was sure that with this dagger, Zhuowen's heart would be completely shattered. Ding. However, when his dagger finally pierced Zhuowen's back, there was a crisp sound of metal clashing. Then, he felt as if his dagger had stabbed into a hard rock. It didn't move. This guy's body, how can it be so tough? Shazi's mouth slowly opened and his eyes were covered by a layer of darkness. Realizing that something was wrong, he quickly withdrew his hand and tried to leave. However, it was too late. Zhuowen's right hand reached out and grabbed Shazi's right hand that was holding the dagger. At this moment, Zhuowen no longer held back the power of the divine body. Although the power of the divine body was still suppressed here, he could still use part of its power. With this power, it was more than enough to kill Shazi. Crack! Zhuowen suddenly exerted force and Shazi's right hand directly shattered. Then, Zhuowen suddenly pulled Shazi and Shazi involuntarily flew toward Zhuowen. Boom! Zhuowen clenched his right fist and fiercely punched Shazi's chest. The terrifying power spread out and Shazi suddenly trembled and spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, Shazi's body began to crack under this huge power and shattered into countless pieces of blood. At this moment, Gui Sha, Flower Fairy, Yaksha, and Yang Ruhua were all stunned. Shazi was the #1 genius of the League of Assassins. His assassination technique was unparalleled in the world. Now, he had been killed by Zhuowen in one move. This was too fast. This guy, his body is so terrifying. Flower Fairy's teeth chattered. I said that the five of you should come at me together. You shouldn't discuss who should go first. After killing Shazi, strands of golden light entered Zhuowen's glabella. This caused the golden rune between Zhuowen's eyebrows to faintly show signs of growing to the 10th one. At the same time, Zhuowen's eyes locked onto Yang Ruhua and the other three. He licked his lips and a bloodthirsty impulse appeared in his eyes. Chapter 1482. 12 golden runes. Now that the 9 golden runes of Saint Luck had entered his body, Zhuowen's comprehension of the laws had reached an unprecedented level. 10 golden runes. Licking his lips, Zhuowen's gaze locked onto Yang Ruhua, Flower Fairy, Yaksha, and Gui Sha. These four had quite a number of golden patterns on their bodies. As long as he could kill one of them, he could reach 10 golden patterns. Feeling Zhuowen's cold gaze, the four of them felt a chill in their hearts. What kind of gaze was that? With such a gaze, they were already completely treating them as prey. Although it didn't feel good to be treated like prey, Yang Ruhua and the others didn't feel angry. Instead, they felt cold and scared. What are you afraid of? If the four of us join forces, no matter how heaven-defying he is, he won't be a match for us, Yang Ruhua said to the flower fairy and the others. Brother Hua is right. Just now, I was careless in killing my son and allowed Zhuowen to grab hold of me. Thus, I was instantly killed. As long as we work together and deal with him cautiously, there is no need to fear him. Gui Sho laughed coldly. Yaksho was also inspired by Yang Ruhua's words and said, I agree with Brother Ruhua. He, no one has any objections. I'm just a girl, so I naturally don't have any objections, the flower fairy giggled and agreed. Zhuowen stood there quietly and said indifferently, don't you think you're talking too much? Since you want to join forces, then join forces to deal with me. Why are you being so hesitant? Hearing that, Yang Ruhua and the others were stunned. Zhuowen's words were arrogant and even arrogant. You're acting recklessly. Let's join forces and kill him, Yang Ruhua said coldly. Yang Ruhua's eyes were cold. As he spoke, he suddenly swung the golden sword in his hand. Countless golden sword shadows shot out. Yang Ruhua followed the golden sword shadows and descended from the sky, targeting Zhuowen. Gui Sho, Yaksho, and Flower Fairy didn't want to be outdone. They followed behind Yang Ruhua and Saint Luck surrounded them. Gui Sho's weapon was a ring covered in spikes. Yaksha's weapon was a 3-meter-long trident. Flower Fairy's weapon was a palm-sized golden lotus. Shameless. Moyan Wushang, Kanan, and Gatha, who were fighting on the other side, saw this scene and their expressions changed slightly. They could not help but curse out loud. However, although the three of them wanted to help Zhuowen, they were powerless and were held back by the others. Do you need my help? The expressionless Jian Mu sent a voice transmission to Zhuowen as he held his sword in his right hand and slashed out horizontally, forcing back several disciples of the other factions who had surrounded him. Facing Zhuowen, Jian Mu's feelings were extremely complicated. He even felt a little guilty. When Mu Chunxue was taken away by the Burning Heaven sect, he did not step forward. In fact, he already knew that the Burning Heaven sect would come to take away Mu Chunxue. However, Old Man Tianju had stopped him and he had considered the bigger picture, so he did not step forward. However, Zhuowen had stepped forward. He was enraged and stood up to face the saint of the Burning Heaven sect. That battle had shaken the entire 9th Netherworld realm. Thinking of Zhuowen's unparalleled majesty, Jian Mu did not know why but he felt a little guilty. In terms of feelings, he was not as good as Zhuowen. He could feel that Zhuowen's love for Mu Chunxue was absolutely beyond everyone's imagination. Zhuowen glanced at Jian Mu and shook his head. He did not say anything. Obviously, he did not need Jian Mu's help. Then you be careful. Jian Mu nodded. His eyes were emotionless as he slashed out with his right hand. Sword shadows filled the sky as he continued to deal with the other martial artists. Whoosh! The moment the conversation ended, Yang Ruhua had already arrived in front of Zhuowen. Countless sword shadows fell like raindrops, descending in front of Zhuowen. The incomparably sharp sword intent seemed to be able to cut through the stars. Its power was terrifying and its momentum was terrifying. Rumble. Zhuowen punched out. Golden veins flashed around his body like a pulse. It looked extremely strange. With this punch, the countless sword shadows in front of him were directly dispersed. The terrifying fist momentum did not change. Taking advantage of the victory, it blasted towards Yang Ruhua. Yang Ruhua was awe-inspiring and fearless. He raised his golden sword above his head and smashed it down fiercely. It contained a great force that seemed to be able to break the heavenly Tao. Bang! Zhuowen still punched out. This punch was like a hard iron rock. It smashed onto the golden sword. Immediately, Yang Ruhua's right hand trembled violently and even twitched. Thump! 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 Yang Ruhua retreated dozens of steps. His right hand could not help but tremble. Then, he was shocked to find that the golden sword was covered with cracks like a spider web. On the other hand, Zhuowen's fist only had a white mark. This was too terrifying. Whoosh, 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 die. The moment Yang Ruhua retreated, 3 figures were like vigorous leopards. They came from 3 different directions and stabbed towards Zhuowen's vital points. Zhuowen floated in the air, his mind radiating outwards. He was paying attention to the 3 people who were suddenly rushing towards him. His mind was raised to an extremely sharp level. Yaksha was on the right. He grinned maliciously and thrust his golden trident towards Zhuowen's ribs. Gui Sho was on the left. He held a spiked ring in his hand. Golden light rose slowly and stabbed towards Zhuowen's heart. The flower fairy was directly behind Zhuowen. Her blooming golden lotus split into 10 petals. 10 petals flew out and turned into 10 golden hidden weapons. They swept towards Zhuowen's back. The 3 people attacked as soon as they came. This made Zhuowen's eyes become extremely cold and even contained a trace of terrifying murderous intent. Boom! Zhuowen snorted coldly. His left and right hands clenched into fists. He immediately punched towards Yaksha and Gui Sho. As for behind him, Zhuowen mobilized the power of the holy body. Threads of golden veins densely covered Zhuowen's back, forming an extremely tough golden defense. Crack! His left and right fists hit Yaksha and Gui Sho's weapons at the same time. Whether it was Yaksha's trident or Gui Sho's spiked ring, they were like paper. They crumbled inch by inch and turned into countless golden light spots. The power of his fists did not change at all. They continued to move forward and heavily hit the 2 people. However, Yaksha and Gui Sho were extremely cunning. Zhuowen's fists were punching towards both sides at the same time, so there was a limit to the distance his fists could travel. The moment the 2 of them realized that their weapons were all broken, they quickly retreated. It was scary but not dangerous, and they dodged Zhuowen's attack. The moment Zhuowen's attack missed, the flower fairy's 10 petals had already descended and landed on Zhuowen's back. The flower fairy's jade-like hand formed a seal. The lotus that had lost its petals transformed into a long golden needle. The flower fairy's jade-like hand formed a long needle. She stepped forward and followed the petals. In an instant, she was behind Zhuowen. She reached out with her jade-like hand. The long golden needle followed her power and accurately landed on Zhuowen's back. Ding, 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 ding. The sound of metal hitting metal rang out. The 10 petals landed on Zhuowen's back, but they were unable to break through the skin. The 10 petals were like fallen leaves. They fell to the ground behind Zhuowen. Ding! The flower fairy's expression changed slightly. Her delicate body had already arrived. The long needle pierced through the void and accurately landed on Zhuowen's back. How is this possible? The long needle formed by the lotus was terrifyingly sharp. It could easily pierce through metal and crack stone. Such a divine needle could not pierce through Zhuowen's back. What kind of monster was this guy? His body was as tough as the toughest rock. While the flower fairy was in a daze, Zhuowen's right hand shot out like a fan and grabbed the flower fairy's jade-like hand. You! Let go of me. The flower fairy's expression changed slightly. Zhuowen's hand strength was terrifying. It was as if she was being held by an iron hoop. She could not break free even if she wanted to. Let go of you. Zhuowen sneered. He did not care about the flower fairy's words. His right hand formed a sword finger and pointed directly at the flower fairy's forehead. The flower fairy was devastatingly beautiful. Coupled with her faintly discernible charm, it was enough to make all living things fall for her. However, Zhuowen was unmoved. As long as someone threatened his life, he would not let them off easily. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Don't kill me. I can swear that I will be your maid and serve you for the rest of my life. The fear of death caused the flower fairy to no longer have any misgivings, and she even revealed a hint of seduction, hoping that Zhuowen would stop. Not interested. Zhuowen was not moved at all. The golden sword finger flashed and instantly pierced the flower fairy's forehead. Poochie. Red blood flowed down from the flower fairy's forehead. The flower fairy's beautiful eyes stared at Zhuowen. Her aura had completely disappeared. She died with her eyes wide open. Whoosh! The moment the flower fairy died, the 7 golden runes on her body peeled off and entered Zhuowen's forehead. In an instant, the 9 golden lines on Zhuowen's forehead exploded with a terrifying golden light. It was as if there was a small sun in Zhuowen's forehead. Then, the 9th golden line began to form the 10th golden line. Moreover, the golden lines did not show any signs of stopping. More golden lines were formed, and 2 more golden lines were formed. In the end, the 12th golden line was formed on Zhuowen's forehead. A terrifying saint's aura soared into the sky. The yellow fog that filled the sky above the yellow fog world was dispersed by this terrifying saint's aura. The others who were fighting stopped fighting and stared blankly at Zhuowen. They did not speak for a long time. The surrounding people also saw the killers and flower fairies' corpses. After a moment of silence, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. The flower fairy and the killer are both dead. They were both killed by this Zhuowen. This is too terrifying. At this moment, Zhuowen was like a god that had descended to the mortal world. He floated in the air. The 12 golden lines on his forehead intersected with each other. They looked blazing and terrifying. At the same time, he attracted the gazes of countless warriors in the yellow fog world. Is this guy going to break through? Qing Longzi and Yang Yi separated. Qing Longzi's face was ugly as he looked at Zhuowen's figure floating in the air. Chapter 1483. About to break through rumble. The saint luck around Zhuowen grew more and more terrifying. The golden light shot into the sky and dyed the entire sky golden yellow. The dense yellow mist in the surroundings was dispersed by the terrifying golden light. The ground began to tremble violently, as if something was about to break out of the ground. How terrifying! Zhuowen is about to break through. The abnormality of the yellow mist world naturally attracted the attention of the leaders of the various forces on the 9 square platforms outside the 9th underworld sky platform. Their gazes passed through the layers of yellow mist and landed on Zhuowen, who was covered in golden light. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. The flower fairy and the assassin are both dead. Bai Maixing, the leader of the 100 Flowers Park, and the leader of the Assassin League, the Imperial Exterminator, had ugly expressions. Although they couldn't see clearly due to the yellow mist, the words representing the flower fairy and the assassin on the light screen above the 9th underworld sky platform had completely dimmed. It was Zhuowen who killed them. Bai Maixing and the Imperial Exterminator's eyes were filled with cold murderous intent as they spoke in a low voice. Zhuowen, the undying old monster, the leader of the undying sacred altar, and the leader of the sacred martial sect, Wu Hu, also had cold gazes as they stared at the figure covered in golden light, as if they were about to devour him. The top genius of the undying sacred altar, Shui Zhe, and the genius of the sacred martial sect, Wu Zhontian, had both been killed by Zhuowen. The two of them couldn't wait to tear out Zhuowen's tendons and bones. Swallow him alive. However, they couldn't do it now. The 9th underworld sky platform was controlled by Cao Rong, and there were powerful restrictions around it. Even a heavenly saint would find it difficult to break into the 9th underworld sky platform by force. Therefore, they were all waiting for the 9th underworld convention to end. Once the 9th underworld convention ended, Zhuowen would become the target of everyone. He's about to become a heavenly saint. This guy must be stopped. Qing Longzi's eyes were dark as he shouted coldly. He took a step forward and slashed out with the dragon-head broadsword in his hand. Boundless saint force spread out and formed a huge dragon. The giant dragon roared and shot toward Zhuowen like an arrow. Wherever it passed, the space collapsed and formed countless black holes. Yang Yi, who was originally lazy, narrowed his eyes. He stepped on the air and swung his long staff. His staff blasted out, forming a dense staff shadow. These staff shadows gathered together to form a huge golden staff that was thousands of feet long. It came crashing down from the sky and smashed into the huge dragon. Rumble. An earth-shattering sound rang out. The sky of the yellow fog world was completely torn apart by this terrifying energy, like a piece of cloth that had been cut open by a knife. The cultivators nearby all retreated, their eyes filled with fear as they stared at the two people fighting in the sky. Why is Yang Yi's strength so terrifying? Wasn't it said that Qing Longzi was the strongest in the 9 Netherworld realm? Why is Qing Longzi on par with Yang Yi? Below, countless cultivators were in an uproar, their eyes filled with awe. In the sky, Yang Yi was holding a golden staff while Qing Longzi was holding a dragon-head broadsword. The two of them continued to exchange blows on the gigantic golden dragon. They were like two blurry shadows. Every time they collided, a portion of the surrounding space would be shattered to pieces. Boom, boom, boom. In just a few dozen rounds, the huge golden dragon was completely blown into golden powder by the aftermath of the battle between the two. At this moment, the entire yellow fog world was covered in a strange golden rain. Yang Yi, you've hidden your strength well. I didn't expect your strength to be so terrifying. Qing Longzi narrowed his eyes and stared at Yang Yi, who was holding a long staff in front of him, and said coldly. Yang Yi smiled faintly, but he didn't show any complacency. He yawned and said, I advise you not to find trouble with Zhuo Wen. Let him break through smoothly. We can just wait here. Fighting here and there is just a waste of energy. Hearing this, Qing Longzi's face darkened, and he said in a low voice, those who block me will die. As he spoke, Qing Longzi was like an angry dragon. He stepped into the void, and the golden rune between his eyebrows emitted a blazing golden light. Countless golden dragon shadows floated under his feet. Qing Longzi was the first person to reach 10 golden runes. The power of Saint Fate in his body was extremely powerful, while Yang Yi only had 9 golden runes. Even so, Yang Yi still managed to intercept Qing Longzi. Kill him. Yang Ruhua was the first to react. He shouted at Yakshaw and Gui Shaw, who were stunned on the other side. Kill. Yakshaw and Gui Shaw nodded. Immediately, they stepped on the empty air and rushed towards Zhuo Wen, who was still in the midst of breaking through, in a pincer attack manner like 2 sharp arrows. As for Yang Ruhua, he followed behind the two, his eyes filled with killing intent. Oh no! Brother Zhuo is breaking through. We can't let him be disturbed. Wu Dai's face changed slightly. The thin wings on her back opened and closed, and she quickly disappeared like a gust of wind. When she reappeared, she was already in front of Zhuowen. With a wave of her hand, 7 golden runes flew out from between her eyebrows and turned into a golden whip. Boom! Boom! The golden whip swept out, and the shadow of the whip filled the sky. Wu Dai did not attack. Instead, she used the shadow of the whip to form an extremely tough defense. The moment Wu Dai arrived, Mo Wen and Fu Wen's clones also landed beside Wu Dai. Whether it was Mo Wen or Fu Wen, they both held golden Buddhist commandment blades. Fu Wen was surrounded by Buddhist light, while Mo Wen's demonic qi soared into the sky. The two of them had a tacit understanding. They crossed their blades and took a defensive stance. You're courting death. Yang Ruhua arrived in an instant, and his golden sword smashed down, causing the void to explode. The power of the sword had shattered the void. Crack! The defensive stance formed by Wu Dai, Mo Wen, and Fu Wen completely collapsed under the sword. The three of them spat out mouthfuls of blood and retreated. Hold on. Jian Mu blasted away the opponent in front of him. Surrounded by sword shadows, he stepped on his sword and blocked in front of Wu Dai and the other two. His sword aura soared into the sky, like a god or a demon. Clang! The two long swords clashed. Jian Mu retreated dozens of steps, while Yang Ruhua retreated a few steps. Jian Mu of Fine God Academy, you have 8 golden runes. Yang Ruhua's eyes narrowed as he stared at the young man with a sword in front of him. Jian Mu was not famous in the 9th Netherworld realm, but in recent years, he had suddenly risen. Although Jian Mu's cultivation was only at the sage-to-be level, he had comprehended the law of ruthlessness, coupled with his powerful and exquisite swordsmanship. In addition, he was a sword cultivator himself. His offensive skills were unparalleled in the world. Although he was only at the sage-to-be level, Jian Mu had defeated a Void Arcane Saint Realm Saint. His combat strength was extremely terrifying. In the world of yellow fog, everyone's origin energy, mind power, power of law, and even spiritual rings could not be used. Everyone's starting point was the same. However, Jianmu was different. Although he could not use the law of ruthlessness or origin energy, his exquisite swordsmanship was extremely powerful. Here, his combat strength was displayed to the greatest extent. Jianmu only had 6 golden runes earlier, but in this short moment, he had killed 7 or 8 people in a row. The saint luck he had obtained had caused the golden runes between his eyebrows to evolve from 6 to 8. His saint aura was vast and mighty. Jianmu, how dare you stop me? Yang Ruhua's eyes were cold as he stared at the expressionless young man holding a long sword in front of him. Why wouldn't I? Jianmu stood in front of Yang Ruhua and spat out such a sentence. His battle intent soared to the sky. Good, good, good. I said that those who block me will die. Yang Ruhua snorted coldly and stepped out. His speed soared to the extreme, like a stream of light. Jianmu was awe-inspiring, but he was not afraid. His sword chi soared to the sky and turned into 10,000 swords. Jianmu's offensive swordsmanship was displayed to the extreme. Countless sword shadows formed around him as if forming a sword defense. Ding, ding. Yang Ruhua's sword was extremely heavy. Every move of his seemed to contain the power of 10,000 katis. On the other hand, Jianmu's sword was as light as the wind. However, if they were to collide, the killing intent contained within would be fatal. The two swords bombarded each other in the void, bursting with power that could collapse space. The countless sword shadows dazzled many martial artists. Let's go. The moment Yang Ruhua and Jianmu fought, Yaksha and Gui Sha looked at each other and continued to rush toward Zhuoan. However, the moment they were about to reach Zhuoan, they were intercepted by 2 figures. Mo Wen, how dare you stop me? If you get out of the way and let me kill Zhuoan, I can ask the island master to let you back into the deserted island. In the future, you will still be a part of the deserted island and the desolate nether realm. Gui Sha stared at Mo Wen and said in a low voice. On the other side, Yaksha was blocked by the Buddhist text and could not touch Zhuoan at all. Fight. Amitabha, this path is blocked. Mo Wen and the Buddhist text each gave their own answer. Then, they burst out with their own battle strength and rushed toward Gui Sha and Yaksha. For a moment, the shockwaves of the battle spread out in all directions like ripples in water. The entire yellow fog world became somewhat chaotic. As the fuse of this battle, Zhuoan was floating quietly in the air. His body was wrapped in saint luck. Ice, fire, void, desolation, death. Zhuoan closed his eyes and murmured. These 4 were the power of laws in his body. He knew that if he wanted to become a true saint, he had to integrate these 5 laws into his own saint power. At this moment, the golden saint luck around him poured into Zhuoan's body. This saint luck followed Zhuoan's meridians and entered his dantian. Under the effect of the saint luck, the yuanli in his dantian began to gradually transform into golden saint power. When Zhuoan's dantian was completely dyed golden, Zhuoan knew that the power in his dantian would no longer be called yuanli, but saint power. This was much more powerful than yuanli. It was a power that only saints could have. Next, I have to summon my own laws and integrate them into saint power. Then, I can become a saint. Chapter 1484. At Yang Ruhua's death ice. Zhuoan growled as he opened his right eye. His right eye was filled with an icy blue color that contained the coldness of 1,000-year-old black ice. The law of ice lingered around it. Fuse. Zhuoan placed his right hand in front of his right eye. Wisps of the law of ice gushed out from his right eye and gathered in Zhuoan's palm. The moment the law of ice surged into Zhuoan's palm, Zhuoan controlled the law of ice in his palm and drilled it into his palm. It then flowed through the meridians in his palm and went deep into Zhuoan's body. The bone-chilling coldness flowed through Zhuoan's meridians and gathered in Zhuoan's dantian like rivers flowing into the sea. Under the effect of the saint energy in his dantian, the law of ice gathered into an octahedral icy blue crystal. If Zhuoan wanted to mobilize the saint energy, he could mobilize the law of ice from the icy blue crystal and integrate it with the saint energy to unleash the terrifying power of the ice saint energy. Fire. When the ice elemental precepts had completely fused with his dantian, Zhuowen opened his fire eye and absorbed the fire elemental precepts into his body. The fire elemental precepts flowed through his meridians and finally gathered in his dantian, forming a flame. The integration of the law of ice and the law of fire was extremely smooth. This guy has both the law of ice and the law of fire. When Zhuowen displayed the law of ice and the law of fire and integrated it into the saint energy in his dantian, it naturally did not escape the attention of the people around him. This guy has both the law of ice and the law of fire. In addition to the law of desolation from before, this guy has 3 laws on him. Qing Longzi took a few steps back as his gaze fell on Zhuowen. Especially when he saw the shadow of ice and fire behind Zhuowen, his expression turned ugly. He knew that during the battle for the Saint Luck, Zhuowen had used the law of desolation in his battle with Shueizhe. In addition to the law of ice and the law of fire, he now had 3 laws on him. To be able to comprehend 3 laws, he was definitely a monster in the 9th Netherworld realm. If such a monster could become a saint, his combat strength would become extremely terrifying. The other martial warriors also stared blankly at this scene, unable to speak for a long time. Desolation. Under the gazes of countless people, Zhuowen once again extracted the law of desolation. Afterwards, he cautiously sent the power of the law of desolation through his meridians and into his dantian. As expected, the 3rd law is the law of desolation. Qing Longzi's eyes were gloomy, and his heart was heavy. He was the #1 genius of the Dragon Wasteland, and the undisputed #1 in the entire 9 Netherworld realm. This was not only because of his cultivation realm, but also because he had comprehended 3 types of laws. Comprehending 2 types of laws was already considered a genius among geniuses. Comprehending 3 types of laws was definitely a 1 in a million existence. Qing Longzi even relied on 3 types of laws to defy the heavens and become a saint. This made his combat strength almost invincible among the younger generation. If it wasn't for the strangeness of this yellow fog world, Qing Longzi might be able to display an extremely heaven-defying battle strength. Even Yang Yi might not be able to stop him. Void. While everyone was still in shock, Zhuowen's indifferent voice rang out again. As soon as his voice fell, countless martial warriors around the yellow fog world froze, their gazes converging on Zhuowen. Aside from ice, fire, and desolation, this kid actually has a 4th law. Qing Longzi felt as if a large piece of walnut had been stuffed into his throat, and he was unable to speak for a long time. His gaze had already revealed the shock in his heart at this moment. Heavens! 4 types of law energy. That's too terrifying. How did Zhuowen manage to comprehend 4 types of law energy by himself? After a moment of silence, an uproar erupted in the surroundings like boiling water. Everyone had begun to clamor. A genius who had comprehended 4 types of laws had never appeared in the 9 Netherworld realm, but now one had appeared. This guy is quite capable. He can actually comprehend 4 types of laws. There was a hint of surprise in Yang Yi's eyes. Even he did not expect Zhuowen to have 4 types of laws. Long Tian, Mo Yang Wushang, Kanan, Gatha, and the others who were familiar with Zhuowen were all pleasantly surprised. This little bastard. Yang Ruhua slashed out with his sword, repelling Jian Mu. Then, he gloomily stared at Zhuowen, who was surrounded by 4 types of laws. The saint energy around Zhuowen hasn't stopped. What's going on? Could it be that this kid has other types of laws? Suddenly, someone noticed that the huge amount of saint energy around Zhuowen did not show any signs of dissipating. Instead, it seemed to be growing stronger. Everyone was shocked. This guy. It's impossible. It's impossible for him to have a 5th type of law. Qing Longzi's face was completely stiff, and Yang Ruhua was even more stunned. The 2 of them, and even the other disciples who were enemies of Zhuowen, were all in disbelief. On the other hand, the warriors who had a good relationship with Zhuowen were surprised, but more of them were happy. Death. Zhuowen's familiar and indifferent voice once again sounded in front of everyone's eyes. The surrounding atmosphere strangely fell into a stagnant state. Everyone held their breaths and stared at Zhuowen's body with their eyes wide open. Zhuowen's body surged with death will. The black fog that represented death spread around Zhuowen's body, enveloping Zhuowen's entire body. It made Zhuowen's figure faintly discernible, distant and mysterious. The law of death. Does this guy really have a fifth type of law? Qinglong's eyes were filled with disappointment, and he fell into a strange silence. Not only Qinglongzi, but all the remaining warriors in the yellow fog world also fell into silence. At this moment, the yellow fog world was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. 5 types of law. Outside the yellow fog world, Cao Rong's body trembled, and his eyes flashed. Lord Cao Rong, this kid is a good seedling. He comprehended 5 types of law, and can be considered an upper-middle genius in the central region. Ji Ning cupped his hands and said to Cao Rong. Cao Rong nodded slightly and said, Ji Ning, I know what I'm doing. Whether or not this kid is really qualified to be recommended into the Primal Chaos Temple will depend on his performance. Performance? What do you mean, Lord? Ji Ning asked doubtfully. 5 types of law, and the armor soul on this kid's body is probably not simple. It won't be easy for this kid to become a sage. If this kid can smoothly break through to the profound sage realm, I will recommend him into the Primal Chaos Temple, Cao Rong said indifferently. Hearing this, Ji Ning's expression changed slightly. He understood what Cao Rong meant. Comprehending 5 types of law was enough to show how outstanding this Zhuowen was. However, he had yet to become a sage, and no one knew whether this kid could successfully become a sage and pass the sage tribulation. Ji Ning bowed and said, Lord, you are wise. This lowly one was impetuous. Just watch. Moreover, from the conversation of these little fellows, it seems that this Zhuowen has an immortal sacred artifact. Cao Rong waved his hand. Ji Ning's pupils shrank, and he said, an immortal sacred artifact. How is that possible? How can a remote place like the Eastern region have such a treasure like an immortal sacred artifact? Cao Rong shook his head and said, I'm not too sure about this matter. I only deduced it from the words of those little fellows. Perhaps it's just a rumor. Cao Rong didn't care too much about it. An immortal sacred artifact was a precious treasure to him. However, Cao Rong didn't make a fuss about it. After all, the Primal Chaos Temple was a colossus in the central region. It wasn't that they didn't have immortal sacred artifacts, and they had more than one. The 5 types of laws are about to enter his body. Stop him. Cold sweat appeared on Qinglong's forehead. A sage who had become a sage with 3 types of laws was already very terrifying, let alone a guy who had become a sage with 5 types of laws. Qinglongzi was sure that once Zhuowen became a sage, he would become an invincible existence among profound sages. Ordinary profound sages wouldn't be a match for Zhuowen at all. Only peak profound sages would have a chance of fighting him. As soon as Qinglong's voice fell, the disciples of the 100 Flowers Park, the Undying Altar, the League of Assassins, Yak Shossi, the Blue Dragon Hall, and the Barren Island also launched a fierce attack. For a moment, the defense around Zhuowen immediately weakened. Even Qinglongzi and Yang Ruhua began to fight with all their might. Yang Yi, you can't stop me. Qinglong's sage might was vast and mighty. He slashed out with his blade, causing the void to explode. Qinglongzi, you've always been looking down on me. Yang Yi shook his head. He swung his long staff and slammed it on the blade. Thousands of mountains rose up and down, and the earth collapsed. Qinglongzi frowned. He found Yang Yi extremely strange. Every time his strength increased, Yang Yi also became stronger. It was as if Yang Yi was a pool of deep water that was bottomless. Get lost. Yang Ruhua showed his might. His long sword extended dozens of meters, and Jianmu couldn't compete with it. He fell from the sky and knelt on one knee on the ground. Yang Ruhua ignored Jianmu. He held his sword in his right hand and instantly swept in front of Zhuowen. He stretched out his right hand, and the tip of his long sword pierced through the void and pierced into Zhuowen's heart. Ding! The long sword pierced into the skin of Zhuowen's heart, but it only made a sound of metal clashing. It was only an inch away before it completely stopped. This guy's physical body. Yang Ruhua's pupils shrank to the size of needles. The long sword formed by 9 golden lines was actually unable to break through the skin of Zhuowen's heart. It could only pierce an inch deep. How tough was this physical body? Boom! Zhuoan suddenly opened his eyes, and the power of 5 types of laws exploded on the surface of his body. Yang Ruhua screamed and flew backwards. His right hand was directly blown to pieces. Puff! Zhuoan spat out a mouthful of blood. He stared coldly at Yang Ruhua. His killing intent was like a Boston ivy, spreading throughout his body. You! Die! With that, Zhuoan's right palm suddenly slammed down from the sky. The power of the 13 golden lines condensed in the void, turning into a giant golden hand, and fiercely slammed into Yang Ruhua's body. Bastard! Yang Ruhua cursed. His golden long sword slashed out horizontally, hitting the giant golden hand. Immediately, the sound of metal clashing resounded. Catcher! The golden long sword shattered. The giant golden hand was like the power of the heavens. It directly crushed down and heavily slammed into Yang Ruhua's body. Puff! Chapter 1485. Crazy slaughter. Because of Yang Ruhua, Zhuoan had completely awakened from his state of epiphany. His eyes were cold as he killed Yang Ruhua in one move. After killing Yang Ruhua, the Saint Luck on his body entered Zhuoan's glabella. The 13 golden runes on his glabella began to spread, and finally burst out with a terrifying golden light. The golden runes began to spread, and the 13 golden runes on Zhuoan's glabella directly grew to 17 golden runes. Yang Ruhua died just like that. The sound of people gasping could be heard. Yang Ruhua was ranked second in the second round of seizing the Saint Luck, and he was also a profound sage powerhouse. It was truly inconceivable that such a genius would fall so easily. Everyone's eyes fell on Zhuoan, and they were all dumbfounded. However, what made many people sigh in relief was that Zhuoan had not broken through to the profound sage realm. Just now, Yang Ruhua's interference had awakened Zhuoan from his state of epiphany, interrupting Zhuoan's process of becoming a profound sage. Zhuoan frowned slightly. Just now, the power of the 5 laws had all merged into his dantian, causing the saint power in his body to be filled with the power of the 5 laws. But even so, Zhuoan still had not broken through to the profound sage realm. Speaking of which, Yang Ruhua's attack just now had not affected him much, and Zhuoan was very clear about this. Is it because of Xiao He? Narrowing his eyes, Zhuoan quickly thought of the reason. Just now, when he was about to break through to the profound sage realm, there was an extremely strong resistance in his sea of consciousness, preventing him from smoothly becoming a profound sage. You're right. It's because of Xiao He. He's a great nether saint dragon and has a noble bloodline. After becoming the soul of your armor, it also increased the difficulty of your breakthrough. Cheng Huang's voice sounded in Zhuoan's mind, causing Zhuoan's pupils to shrink. You old fox, what are you talking about? Xiao He's voice was heard as well. After scolding Cheng Huang, it said to Zhuoan cautiously, Kid, it's indeed my fault. I'm sorry. Zhuoan shook his head and said, Why are you talking about this? Since a dozen or so golden patterns aren't enough, I'll take more until I become a saint. Zhuoan did not seem to blame Xiao He at all. He waved his hand, his eyes filled with indifference. Thank you, kid. Xiao He's eyes were filled with gratitude. Since it's difficult for my main body to become a saint, perhaps I should let my 2 clones gather 10 golden patterns first. Zhuoan muttered in a low voice. He took a step forward and headed towards Yaksha and Gui Sho, who were still fighting with the 2 clones. Although Zhuoan had yet to enter the saint realm, he was infinitely close to the profound sage realm due to his recent breakthrough. Whoosh! Zhuoan was like a god descending to the mortal world as he instantly arrived in front of Yaksha. Retreat! Yaksha's face was filled with shock. The scene of Yang Ruhua's death was still vivid in his mind. The Zhuoan in front of him was simply too terrifying. Even Yang Ruhua had been crushed to death in one move, let alone him. You want to retreat? What a beautiful dream. Zhuoan's right palm suddenly slammed down. Yaksha's expression changed drastically. The speed of Zhuoan's palm was simply too fast. It was like a vast mountain crushing down. Block it! Yaksha screamed as the golden trident in his hand suddenly rose up. Golden light burst out, and the phantom of the sea god appeared in the endless golden light. Its power was unparalleled. Rumble! The huge palm crushed down, and the phantom of the sea god was directly shattered. The trident also collapsed inch by inch. No! Yaksha screamed as he was directly smashed to the ground by the palm. He was motionless. Zhuoan had been merciful with this palm. With the power of his saint body, this palm was enough to crush Yaksha. However, at the last moment, he had held back and only seriously injured Yaksha. Buddha Wen, kill him. Zhuo Wen ordered. The Buddhist rune beside him took a step forward and blasted out a Buddhist palm, smashing heavily onto the Yaksha. Puff! Yaksha didn't even have time to react before he was blasted into a cloud of blood mist by Buddha Wen. His saint luck was directly taken by Buddha Wen. Sizzle! 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 Suddenly, the 7 golden runes between Buddha Wen's eyebrows began to grow and spread, and directly gave birth to 10 golden runes. After killing Yaksha, Zhuoan didn't slow down. He rushed toward Gui Sha. Gui Sha had already seen that the time was not right. He had already left the battlefield and fled to other places in the yellow fog world. Although Mo Wen was strong, compared to Gui Sha, he was still a little weaker, so he didn't let Gui Sha stay. Kill all the disciples on the deserted island. Zhuoan ordered Mo Wen, and the latter nodded. Since Gui Sha didn't care about the lives of the disciples on the deserted island, Zhuoan wouldn't be polite either. He directly asked Mo Wen to take the saint luck from the disciples on the deserted island. Ah! 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 Screams rang out one after another. Gui Sha's departure left the disciples on the other deserted islands in a daze. When Mo Wen arrived among the disciples on the deserted island, he used lightning-fast methods and began to kill them all. In an instant, Mo Wen was surrounded by a cloud of blood mist. At this moment, he was like a demon god from hell, bathed in blood. 10 golden runes. After killing all the disciples on the deserted island, the number of golden runes between Mo Wen's eyebrows increased to 10. Boom! Boom! 2 rays of golden light pierced through the sky from the yellow fog world. Vast saint aura spread over the 9th underworld sky platform. Mo Wen and Buddha Wen are about to become saints. On the 9th underworld sky platform square, the disciples who had been eliminated all raised their heads and stared at the 2 golden pillars with shock in their eyes. Kill! While Mo Wen and Buddha Wen were breaking through to become saints, Zhuoan stared coldly at the disciples of the 100 Flowers Park, the League of Assassins, the Undying Altar, Yaksha Sea, and the Blue Dragon Hall. Without wasting any time, he took a step forward and the golden spear in his hand shot towards the disciples like a snake. Run! Sensing the chilling killing intent in Zhuoan's eyes, the disciples trembled. They did not care about their dignity as martial artists and fled. Zhuoan was too terrifying. The strongest geniuses of the 5 forces were all killed by him. Although they were arrogant, they did not think that they were a match for him. Bastard! Qinglong's face was ugly. Because of Yang Yi's obstruction, he could only watch as Zhuoan slaughtered the other disciples. Poochie! Poochie! A bloody massacre occurred in the yellow fog world. The disciples of the 5 forces were all killed by Zhuoan. None of them could withstand a single blow from him. We'll give you our saint luck. Don't kill us. Finally, someone was scared. He quickly gave his saint luck to Zhuoan and wanted to be teleported out. But Zhuoan did not say a word. The golden spear in his hand was like the scythe of the Grim Reaper, harvesting the lives of the disciples. When the spear pierced through the heart of the last disciple, Zhuoan stopped. He pulled out the golden spear with his right hand. His eyes were indifferent, like the Grim Reaper of hell. Yun Ran, Wu Dai, Yang Yi, Fu Yu, Mo Yang Wushang and the others from the Demon God Palace all stared at the blood-soaked youth in front of them with complicated gazes. The shock in their hearts was like a tsunami that couldn't be suppressed for a long time. At this moment, everyone outside the 9th underworld sky platform was silent. Their eyes fell on the light screen. Other than the disciples of the Demon God Palace and the Divine Academy, the names of the disciples of the other factions were all dim and dull. The only ones left were Qinglongzi from the Blue Dragon Hall and Gui Sha from the Barren Island. Other than those 2, there was no one else. They're all dead. Someone was in a daze as he murmured. In the yellow fog world, The most elite disciples of the ninth underworld were gathered. They were the core disciples of the major forces of the ninth underworld. Now, other than the disciples of the Divine Academy and the Demon God Palace, the disciples of the other 7 major forces were almost all dead. It was too terrifying. Then, who was the one who killed these disciples? It's that Zhuo Wen who did it. That's because the screen of light shows that the number of golden markings on that child's body is the highest. Finally, someone noticed that Zhuo Wen's name on the light screen was emitting a golden light that was much stronger than the other names. At this moment, among the 9 major forces, Saint Martial Sect's Wu Hu, 100 Flowers Parks by Maixing, Undying Old Monster, Assassin League's Imperial Exterminator, Yakshosi's Eternal Night Underworld King and the Barren Islands Masters all narrowed their eyes. Intense killing intent burst out from the eyes of the masters of the 6 major forces. Almost all the elite disciples of their forces were dead. They couldn't take this lying down. Zhuo Wen, that little bastard, he killed Ruhua. I must kill him with my own hands. On the square platform of the Blue Dragon Hall, Elder Reiwa slammed his right hand on the stone platform beside the armrest. A powerful force directly smashed the stone platform into pieces. Qing Yuan frowned slightly and muttered in a low voice, "We must kill this kid, but now is not the time." Speaking of which, Sapphire Shaw was also a little worried about Qing Longzi. In such a short time, Zhuo Wen had killed so many disciples of the other forces. Even their Blue Dragon Hall's disciples were all dead except for Qing Longzi. Sapphire Shaw also felt a little pained about this, but he didn't show it. It should be soon. Zhuo Wen, that little bastard, is going to die soon. Sapphire Shaw raised his head and looked past the 9th Underworld Sky platform and into the deepest part of the 9th Underworld Sky. It was as if there was a primordial beast hiding there. Wu Dai, Tai Mo, help me guard Mo Wen and Buddhist Rune. Zhuo Wen suddenly said to Wu Dai and Tai Mo. The two nodded and rushed to the side of Mo Wen and Buddhist Rune, keeping an eye on their surroundings. Zhuo Wen walked towards Qing Longzi step by step and said indifferently, "Qing Longzi, do you dare to fight me?" Yang Yi curiously sized up Zhuo Wen. Soon after, he took a step aside, allowing Qing Longzi to face Zhuo Wen directly. Yang Yi himself, on the other hand, stood to the side with an indifferent expression. Chapter 1486. Forcing Qing Longzi to retreat. He already has 25 golden runes, but Zhuo Wen still can't break through to the Saint Realm. In the Yellow Fog world, almost all the disciples of the other forces had been killed. Only the disciples of Jioshan Academy and Demon God Palace were left. They raised their heads slightly as their gazes landed on Zhuo Wen. All of them revealed looks of shock. At this moment, Zhuo Wen's saint aura was too terrifying. The pressure that faintly permeated the air made it difficult for them to breathe. 10 golden runes were enough for an ordinary cultivator to reach the saint realm. However, Zhuo Wen had 25 saint runes, but he still showed no signs of breaking through. 5 types of laws have been integrated into the saint force. As long as Xiao He completely transforms, I'll be able to become a saint. Zhuo Wen's eyes flashed. He knew his situation best. When 10 golden runes appeared between his eyebrows, Xiao He had already started to transform. Now that he had 25 golden runes, Xiao He was wrapped in a golden cocoon in his sea of consciousness. As the number of golden runes between his eyebrows increased, the cocoon around Xiao He became thicker and thicker. The aura of the cocoon also became more terrifying. Zhuo Wen knew very well that once Xiao He broke out of the cocoon, it would undergo the final transformation. At that time, Zhuo Wen would be able to break through the final shackles and reach the saint realm. Qing Longzi frowned. Zhuo Wen's aura was too terrifying. He only had 10 golden runes, but Zhuo Wen had 25 golden runes. In this yellow fog world where he couldn't use any other means and could only use the power of Saint Luck, Qing Longzi wasn't confident he could defeat Zhuo Wen. "Qing Longzi, do you dare to fight?" Zhuo Wen took a step forward. The power of the saint runes spread over his feet, causing the ground to tremble. A muffled thunder-like voice spread across the entire space, exploding in everyone's ears. Qing Longzi's frown deepened, but he didn't immediately accept the challenge. In other words, He was a little upset and even a little timid. Brother Qinglongzi, didn't you call yourself the #1 genius of the 9 Netherworld realm? Why don't you accept the challenge? Yang Yi leaned against a rock and looked at Qinglongzi with a smile. His voice was full of mockery. Qinglongzi's face turned somewhat ugly, especially when he saw the ridicule in the eyes of Yang Yi and the others, which made Qinglongzi feel stifled in his heart. How can you obtain such powerful saint luck by robbing other people's saint luck? If you want to fight me again after we leave the yellow fog world, do you dare? Qinglongzi said coldly. Is the #1? Is hall? Blue halls is. Lu Hantian, is Grand Halls first? Lu Hantian Lu Tian uses Li Studio said Hantian said. The others also looked at him with disdain. In the yellow world, no one could use their own means. They had to start from nothing. Here, Zhuowen's combat power was undoubtedly much stronger than Qinglongzi's. Needless to say, this battle was Zhuowen's complete victory. Now, Qinglongzi had mentioned the battle in the yellow world. This was undoubtedly admitting that he was inferior to Zhuowen in the yellow world. If you don't dare to fight, then I'll force you to fight. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He bounced his legs and rushed out like a cannonball toward Qinglongzi. Qinglongzi's face changed slightly. He slashed out with his dragonhead broadsword, and a blade shot out from the void. Countless images of dragons appeared around the saber blade. They appeared to be the rulers of the world, and their power was vast and mighty. Boom! Zhuowen didn't dodge at all. He punched out and smashed the blade into dust. Golden light burst out. Zhuowen had a second-rate saint body. In addition to the vast saint aura of 25 golden patterns, it was difficult for Qinglongzi to compete with him. Looking at Zhuowen's imposing manner, Qinglongzi's face changed drastically. He held his dragonhead broadsword and retreated. His attack was broken so easily. It was unexpected. At the same time, he didn't dare to fight with Zhuowen. Retreat. Thinking of this, Qinglongzi decisively retreated. Countless dragon shadows appeared around him. He was extremely fast. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. He stomped on the void, and a ring-shaped airwave burst out from under his feet. Relying on the powerful force of his feet, his speed soared to an extremely terrifying level. His entire body was like a puff of smoke, disappearing from where he was. When he reappeared, he was already behind Qinglongzi. Crouching dragon fist. He punched across the air and blasted behind Qinglongzi. Dragon shadows erupted around his fist. This punch carried the power of 10,000 katis. The pressure formed by the punch directly enveloped Qinglongzi, making it difficult for him to move. Break. Qinglongzi's face was ferocious. He twisted his waist and the dragonhead broadsword drew 360 degrees around him. Broadsword chi filled the air and turned into a golden dragon. Rumble. The pressure from the punch was directly shattered by Qinglongzi's dragonhead broadsword. Swoosh. The moment the pressure was broken, a fist broke through the air and smashed heavily in front of Qinglongzi. Qinglongzi's pupils shrank to the size of needles. He held his dragonhead broadsword horizontally in front of him and blocked the punch. Bang! 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 A series of explosions resounded. The broadsword in front of Qinglongzi was struck away. Qinglongzi was sent flying at such a terrifying distance. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Zhuowen, just you wait. Once you get out of the yellow fog world, it will be the time of your death. Qinglongzi's sharp voice resounded. Following which, his speed soared to an extremely terrifying level. He directly teleported and disappeared from where he was. Boom! The moment Qinglongzi disappeared, a demon-like figure descended from the sky and smashed into the place where Qinglongzi was just a moment ago. A huge crater was created and countless rocks were sent flying. You sure are quick to escape. Zhuowen stood in the crater and looked at Qinglongzi, who had already disappeared. His eyelids drooped and his brows furrowed. Qinglongzi had used some kind of secret technique to be able to instantly disappear from where he was. It was as if he had escaped into the void, making it difficult to find him. If Zhuowen could use the law of void at this moment, he could try to track Qinglongzi. Unfortunately, He couldn't use the law of void in the yellow fog world. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Numerous figures rushed over and gathered around Zhuowen. These people were the disciples of the Excellent Gods Institute and the Demon God Palace. Lu Hantian immediately arrived in front of Zhuowen. He fiercely hammered Zhuowen's shoulder with his right hand and said with a hearty smile, "I knew that you wouldn't miss the 9 Netherworld Assembly." Zhuowen also hammered Lu Hantian's shoulder. When he saw the concern in the latter's eyes, his heart felt warm. He said, "Big brother Hantian, congratulations on successfully advancing to the profound sage realm. I can't compare with you. You're too abnormal. You haven't even entered the profound sage realm, but you already have such a terrifying cultivation. It's really unexpected. Right, you already have 25 golden patterns between your eyebrows. Why haven't you broken through to the profound sage realm yet?" Lu Hantian looked at Zhuowen with a puzzled expression and asked the question in his heart. Not only Lu Hantian, but Moyan Wushang, Wu Dai, Gatha, Jianan, and the others also looked at Zhuowen strangely. They couldn't figure out how he still hadn't broken through to the profound sage realm with 25 golden patterns. At this moment, although Zhuowen hadn't entered the profound sage realm yet, the profound sage aura on his body was even more terrifying than that of an ordinary profound sage due to his saint luck. Zhuowen shook his head with a bitter smile and vaguely gave a reason. If he said it about Xiao He, the others definitely wouldn't believe him, so it was better not to say it. Seeing Zhuowen like this, everyone knew that this matter was related to Zhuowen's secret, so they didn't ask too much. "Zhuowen, what's the relationship between you and these Buddhist and demonic runes?" Yang Yi walked over from the crowd and pointed at the Buddhist and demonic runes that were still breaking through. "That's my external incarnation," Zhuowen said with a smile. Yang Yi's expression became serious, but he immediately smiled and said, "Amazing. Even your external incarnation is so extraordinary." The fighting strength of Buddhist and demonic cultivators was more terrifying than that of ordinary cultivators. Zhuowen's 2 external incarnations were such terrifying cultivators. There was no doubt that if both of these incarnations really became profound sages, they would be of great help to Zhuowen. "Master, what should we do now?" Wu Dai suddenly asked. "We can only wait. Now that many of us have gathered 10 golden runes, we can use this time to comprehend the saint luck. Perhaps we can break through to the profound sage realm, or even advance further in the profound sage realm," Zhuowen said in a deep voice. Hearing this, the others didn't have any objections. After the battle just now, many people had gathered 10 saint runes. Lu Hantian, Wu Dai, Yang Yi, Gatha, and Yun Ran had all gathered 10 golden runes. Although the others hadn't gathered 10 golden runes, it was still quite a lot. If they carefully comprehended the saint luck, they would definitely gain a lot. "Everyone, it's best not to split up. Now that Qing Longzi and Gui Sha have escaped, if you meet the 2 of them alone, I'm afraid it won't bode well for you," Zhuowen suddenly reminded. The disciples of Jioshan Institute naturally didn't have any objections, but many of the disciples of Demon God Palace were somewhat unconvinced. "Senior sister, why should we listen to this guy? We're not disciples of Jioshan Institute," a disciple of Demon God Palace said unconvinced. Yun Ran's beautiful eyes stared at the disciple who rebutted, and he immediately withered. Zhuowen is right. Qing Longzi and Gui Sha are nowhere to be found. It's indeed a little inappropriate for us to be alone. Yun Ran said indifferently, but her beautiful eyes fell on Zhuowen. Even she was amazed by the battle just now. The strength of the young man in front of her was too terrifying. At the same time, she also recalled the various rumors about Zhuowen. Is an immortal saint artifact really so magical? It can actually raise Zhuowen's strength to such a terrifying level. Without a doubt, Yun Ran attributed Zhuowen's battle strength to the immortal saint artifact on his body. Only an immortal saint artifact could turn something rotten into something magical. Zhuowen chatted with Lu Hantian and the others for a while, then he stepped into the air and landed between Mo Wen and Fe Wen. With a wave of his sleeve, the saint luck spread out, forming a golden barrier around the 2 of them. He sat between the 2 of them with a hint of excitement in his eyes. Chapter 1487. Buddha's demon Aizrawan sat cross-legged in the air, while the others found a place to sit cross-legged, silently refining the saint luck in their bodies. Using the power of the saint luck in their bodies, they silently comprehended the power of laws in their bodies, wanting to use this power of saint luck to break through to the saint realm. As the days passed, the saint pressure in Wu Dai and Gatha's bodies grew stronger and stronger. The laws lingered around their bodies and merged into the saint power in their dantian, beginning the final breakthrough. Wu Dai and Gatha are about to break through. Lu Hantian and Yun Ran stood up at the same time. Both of them were profound sages, and because of the 10 golden patterns, it only took them 2 days to advance from the Void Profound Saint realm to the Nirvana Profound Saint realm. As for Wu Dai and Gatha, they were both half-step sages, so the time it took for them to advance to the Saint realm was naturally much longer than Lu Hantian and Yun Ran. Moreover, to advance to the Saint realm, one needed to pass the Saint Tribulation, which required a lot of time and foundation. Wu Dai and Gatha had only comprehended one kind of law, so after obtaining 10 golden patterns, it was normal for them to advance to the Saint realm in 5 days. The strangest thing was actually Yang Yi. He had also obtained 10 golden patterns, but there were no signs of him breaking through. This made Lu Hantian and Yun Ran feel quite strange. Moreover, the two of them couldn't see through Yang Yi's realm at all. They only vaguely felt that Yang Yi should be a profound sage. At this moment, Yang Yi was leaning against a dilapidated wall, while Jian Mu stood beside him with a ruthless gaze. Yang Yi glanced sideways at Jian Mu and said, "Junior brother Jian Mu, if you want to obtain 10 golden patterns, it should be very easy, right? Why did you deliberately stop at 9 golden patterns?" Jian Mu's eyes flickered, and he said, "Because I still owe Chen Shui a favor, and I have my own use for these 9 golden patterns. Once you reach 10 golden patterns, the power of the saint luck in them will help you break through to the saint realm. At that time, the golden patterns will turn into your power. However, before you reach 10 golden patterns, the golden patterns can actually be offered by themselves." At this point, Yang Yi stopped talking. His eyes were filled with ridicule as he looked at Jian Mu. Jian Mu frowned slightly and sighed. "I'm just taking precautions. I hope senior brother won't interfere in this matter." Yang Yi stared at Jian Mu seriously. Finally, he sighed and said, "After this favor is repaid, you can leave with me. Your sword is very suitable for cultivating the law of emotionlessness. Perhaps you have yet to comprehend how powerful the law of emotionlessness is, but you will know in the future." Jian Mu's eyes revealed a trace of sadness as he said, "Senior brother, I understand. After returning the favor, I want to go to the Burning Heaven sect again. Then, I'll go with you." Yang Yi, however, shook his head and said, "You can't go to the Burning Heaven sect. Zhuoan has an immortal sacred artifact. I believe that he will bring Mu Chunxue back. You may meet again in the future." Hearing this, Jian Mu fell completely silent. Wu Dai and Gatha's Saint Tribulation were extremely extraordinary. After all, the former was a rare and powerful demon emperor, and the latter's Scourge Armor Soul was even more extraordinary. In the dark clouds, countless golden lightning spread out like golden pythons intertwining. Although the golden lightning was terrifying, Wu Dai and Gatha were even more extraordinary. After 2 days, the two finally passed the Saint Tribulation. The power in their bodies had all turned into powerful Saint Force. Moreover, because of the Saint Tribulation, the Saint Force in their bodies and the law of Saint Force became more and more compatible. Void Arcane Saint Realm. Lu Hantian and Yun Ran's eyes lit up at the same time. They rushed to Gatha and Wu Dai's side respectively. The other disciples of Fine God Institute and Demon God Palace also gathered around, their eyes filled with envy. "Gatha, congratulations on becoming a saint." Lu Hantian laughed and was quite forthright. Gatha smiled shyly, but her beautiful eyes fell on Zhuoan in the sky. She said worriedly, "I wonder if Big Brother Zhuoan's 2 doppelgangers can successfully become saints." "That guy definitely can. You can rest assured." Lu Hantian smiled slightly, his eyes also falling on Zhuoan. At the same time, Wu Dai, who was surrounded by the people of Demon God Palace, also looked at Zhuoan. Boom! While everyone was waiting with bated breath, 2 terrifying saint auras soared into the sky, breaking through the entire yellow fog world. It was like the light of the rising sun, sprinkling on the ground. Zhuowen's two doppelgangers are going to pass the Saint Tribulation? The two Saint Auras soared into the sky, attracting the attention of Lu Hantian and the others. They all raised their heads and looked at the two doppelgangers floating in the sky with awe. Zhuowen opened his eyes and looked up at the sky. At the end of the sky, dark green clouds were constantly gathering, and dark golden lightning was raging inside. Moreover, the dark golden lightning was so dense that it could manifest into blooming golden lotuses, looking gorgeous and terrifying. Boom! A bolt of golden lightning descended from the sky. As it descended, countless golden lotuses bloomed. The power spread out, causing countless living beings in the world to tremble. What a terrifying Saint Tribulation! Lu Hantian and the others' faces were a little ugly. The Saint Tribulation that Zhuowen's two doppelgangers passed was too terrifying. It was much more terrifying than Wu Dai's and Gatha's Saint Tribulation. Among the countless golden lightning bolts, there were actually illusory golden lotuses. This was unprecedented. Let's pass the Saint Tribulation together. Looking at the terrifying golden lightning in the sky, Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. With a thought, he controlled the two doppelgangers to rush out. Mo Wen and Fua Wen held golden Buddhist commandment blades in their hands and rose up, standing on top of the golden lightning. Boom! The terrifying power of lightning exploded, and the Buddha and demon doppelgangers roared in anger. They slashed out with their Buddhist commandment blades, and the golden lightning was annihilated. For some reason, the combined power of the Buddha and demon doppelgangers was extremely vast and powerful. It was said that the combination of Buddha and demon could produce a new kind of energy, and that was the Buddha and demon power. Back then, the fighting Buddha and demon sage had merged the two kinds of energy and refined them into the Buddha demon eye. When Zhuowen's Buddha and demon doppelgangers joined forces, the Buddha and demon power formed was so powerful that even the golden lightning formed by the Saint Tribulation could not do anything to it. Boom! 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 In the sky, the Saint Tribulation was getting more and more terrifying. Countless golden lotuses were born from the thunderclouds. The lotuses bloomed, and the petals exploded. The surrounding space was shattered into countless spatial cracks under the terrifying power of the golden lotuses. Lu Hantian and the others turned pale. Zhuowen's Saint Tribulation was too powerful. Even an ordinary saint might fall in the face of such a Saint Tribulation. However, Zhuowen's Buddha and demon doppelgangers were not afraid. The karma law of Buddha and demon doppelgangers merged into the Buddha saint power, and the demon doppelgangers merged into the demon saint power. When the Buddha saint power and demon saint power merged together, the Buddha and demon saint power formed a terrifying Buddha and demon doppelgangers. Even though the golden lightning had produced countless golden lotuses, it was still crushed into dust by the combined power of the Buddha and demon doppelgangers. The Saint Tribulation of the two doppelgangers lasted for 3 days and 3 nights before it finally subsided. There was no doubt that as time passed, the power of the Saint Tribulation grew stronger. However, the performance of the Buddha and demon doppelgangers had taken everyone by surprise. No matter how strong the Saint Tribulation was, the combined power of the two doppelgangers grew stronger. The terrifying Saint Tribulation could not do anything to the Buddha and demon doppelgangers. Boom! Boom! When the Saint Tribulation gradually subsided, the Buddha and demon doppelgangers descended from the sky. Their gazes fell on Zhuowen as they lowered their heads slightly, as if waiting for Zhuowen to give them orders. Zhuowen, your two doppelgangers have successfully broken through. Congratulations! Lu Hantian and the others came forward to welcome them. They stared at Zhuowen with joy in their eyes. Zhuowen also revealed a look of joy. The Buddha and demon doppelgangers had finally broken through to the profound sage realm. Moreover, he could faintly feel that the Buddha and demon doppelgangers were very different from before. Buddha and demon can be combined, Zhuowen muttered in a low voice. Soon after, with a thought, the Buddha and demon doppelgangers merged together. Suddenly, the black demonic energy and the golden Buddha energy quickly circulated like liquid. Boom! 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 The two doppelgangers merged together, forming a majestic figure. The left side of this figure was like a demon, while the right side was like a Buddha. Boom! Boom! The moment this Buddha and demon doppelganger appeared, a terrifying ancient aura overflowed. Lu Hantian and the others couldn't help but retreat with shock in their eyes. Lu Hantian's eyes were filled with fear. The pressure released by this Buddha and demon doppelganger was so terrifying that their bodies even trembled. They felt like prostrating themselves in worship. Zhuowen withdrew his right hand, and the Buddha and demon doppelganger quickly shrank, turning into an eye the size of a thumb. Black and golden colors constantly circulated in this eye, and Buddha energy and demonic energy alternated. It was the Buddha demon eye. After the Buddha and demon doppelgangers had become profound sages, the power of the Buddha demon eye had been completely unlocked. Whoosh! The Buddha demon eye shot into Zhuowen's forehead like a stream of light. Suddenly, the aura on Zhuowen's body became hundreds of times more terrifying than before. At this moment, Zhuowen was simultaneously carrying the power of both Buddha and demon. The true power of the Buddha demon eye was completely displayed at this moment. Emptiness in one thought, Buddha demon eye appears. Zhuowen shouted, and the Buddha demon eye on his forehead cracked open. Buddha energy and demonic energy burst out at the same time, shooting straight into the sky. In the sky, the Buddha and demon doppelganger stepped out from the void. Their huge bodies were indomitable, like towering mountains. The Buddha kowtows 9 times to the heavens, the demon's 10 most dangerous places. The 9 heavens and 10 earths, the Buddha and demon are unparalleled. A majestic and ancient voice came from the Buddha and demon doppelganger in the sky, exploding in Zhuowen's ears. The Buddha kowtows 9 times to the heavens, the demon's 10 most dangerous places. The 9 heavens and 10 earths, the Buddha and demon are unparalleled. Zhuowen murmured along with the voice of the Buddha demon's shadow. As he repeated this sentence, his eyes revealed a look of understanding. Moreover, Zhuowen was chanting faster and faster. He could feel that this sentence contained a different meaning. Zhuowen, this is. Lu Hantian retreated dozens of meters and stared at Zhuowen, who was sitting cross-legged in the distance. Chapter 1488. 9 kowtows to heaven. At this moment, the Buddha demon eye had completely awakened. The Buddha demon eye's 9 kowtows to heaven and the demon eye's 10 perilous lands were the ultimate skills of the Buddha demon eye. The Buddha demon eye's 9 kowtows to heaven, the first kowtows to heaven, the second kowtows to heaven, the third kowtows to heaven, the fourth kowtows to heaven, the fifth kowtows to heaven, the sixth kowtows to heaven, the seventh kowtows to heaven, the 8th kowtows to heaven, and the 9th kowtows to heaven. The demon eye's 10 perilous lands were the first perilous land, the second perilous land, the third perilous land, the fourth perilous land, the fourth perilous land, the fifth perilous land, the sixth perilous land, the seventh perilous land, the 8th immovable land, the 9th perilous land, and the 10th perilous land. After the Buddha demon eye's awakening, it can actually trigger the skills contained within. I wonder how powerful this skill is. Zhuowen slowly stood up, and the Buddha demon eye between his eyebrows flickered with golden and black brilliance. He pressed down with his right hand and shouted, the Buddha demon eye's 9 kowtows to heaven, the first kowtows to heaven. As soon as he said that, the huge Buddha image in the sky took a step forward. Following Zhuowen's instructions, the huge Buddha palm fell from the sky and smashed down with a rumble. Boom! Boom! The power of this Buddha palm was extremely terrifying. As the palm fell, the entire sky seemed to be on the verge of collapse, and the surrounding space cracked open. When the Buddha palm finally landed on the ground, a shockwave thousands of meters tall spread out in all directions with the Buddha palm as the center, causing the earth to violently tremble. In an instant, numerous cracks appeared on the ground, and the area within 1,000 miles turned into a terrifying ruin. As for Lu Hantian and the others, although they were standing not far from Zhuowen, the Buddha palm was under Zhuowen's control, so they were naturally unharmed. What a terrifying attack! Seeing the powerful destructive power caused by the Buddha palm, Lu Hantian and the others were dumbfounded and inwardly smacked their lips. Even Zhuowen was a little surprised. This was only the first kowtow of the Buddha Demon Eye's 9 kowtows to heaven, yet its power was already so terrifying. It had already reached the level of an ordinary profound sage. Then, wouldn't the remaining 8 kowtows be even more terrifying? Is this the true power of the Buddha Demon Eye? Zhuowen revealed a look of ecstasy. Before the Buddha Demon Eye had awakened, it was actually of little use to him. Even after he had split into 2 clones, the help it provided to him was extremely limited. Now that the 2 Buddha and demon doppelgangers had both become saints, they had combined to form the Buddha Demon Eye. The power of the 2 skills contained within was actually this terrifying. Xiaohei, wait till you've truly transformed. My true body will become a true saint. Then, we'll battle it out in all directions and desolation. Zhuowen raised his head, and his gaze pierced through the layers of yellow fog and landed on the 9 square platforms around the 9 underworlds' heavenly platform. He knew that his identity had been completely exposed. In addition, he had killed all the elite disciples of the other forces in the 9th netherworld realm. Coupled with the fact that Zhuowen possessed an immortal sacred artifact, the 9 netherworld realm no longer tolerated him. After the 9 netherworld conference ended, he knew that he would be facing the entire 9 netherworld realm. Even so, what was he afraid of? Before participating in the 9 netherworld conference, he had already prepared himself to face the attacks of countless martial artists in the 9 netherworld realm. I want to become a saint. Zhuowen roared towards the sky. His voice was like thunder, and it rumbled. The entire 9 netherworld heaven was filled with Zhuowen's terrifying and loud voice. Not only in the yellow fog world, countless martial artists in the 9 netherworld heavenly platform could clearly hear Zhuowen's heroic voice. What? This Zhuowen hasn't become a saint yet? This lad has 25 golden lines all to himself. He has almost occupied the majority of the saint luck, and he still hasn't become a saint. When these words came out, countless people were in an uproar. Generally speaking, 10 golden lines were enough for a sage to become a saint. However, this Zhuowen was a freak. This lad must die. On the square platform of the martial netherworld realm, Wu Hu took a step forward and floated outside the 9 netherworld heavenly platform. His eyes were filled with malice. Behind Wu Hu, there were dozens of figures. They were all elders of the sacred martial sect. Most of them were sage-to-be. Originally, the Grand Elder of the Saint Martial Sect was a void arcane sage, but he was crippled by Zhuowen. The number 1 genius of the Sacred Martial Sect, Wu Zhontian, and 3 core disciples had also been killed by Zhuowen. This grudge was irreconcilable. Zhuowen is arrogant and domineering. He dares to kill innocent people in the 9 netherworld conference. This kind of vicious person deserves to be killed. After the Sacred Martial Sect stood up, the undying old monster of the Undying Altar, by Mai Sheng of the 100 Flowers Park, the imperial exterminator of the League of Assassins, Yasha Hai, Yongye Yama King, and Desolate Island Desert all brought their respective higher-ups and gathered beside Wu Hu. The 6 saints brought their own powerful martial artists and stared at the 9 netherworld heavenly platform with murderous intent. Although they didn't dare to approach the 9 netherworld heavenly platform because of Cao Rong, they could wait until the 9 netherworld conference ended. At that time, Zhuowen's time of death would come. Everyone is right. Zhuowen is too arrogant. Does he really think that we can't do anything to him in the 9 netherworld heavenly platform? Once he comes out, this kid will have a taste of what it's like to be dead. Sapphire Shore's clear voice came from the square platform of the Dragon Netherworld realm. Then, he brought Elder Reiwa and the higher-ups of the Blue Dragon Hall over and gathered beside the 6 forces. The leaders of the 6 forces all looked at Sapphire Shore and cupped their hands in acknowledgement. As the strongest heavenly saint in the 9 netherworld realm, Sapphire Shore had an important position and weight in the hearts of the leaders of the other forces. Palace Master Qing is right. This kid is too arrogant. He should be taught a lesson. The Eternal Night Dark Monarch of the Yaksha Sea laughed. The others also hurriedly agreed. In the face of everyone's flattery, Qing Yuan enjoyed it quite a bit and said indifferently, "This kid is also relying on the uniqueness of the yellow fog world, coupled with the fact that this little bastard seems to have an extremely strong physique, so he is able to display such great strength. If he comes out of the yellow fog world, not to mention Qinglongzi, even Gui Sho can easily deal with him. Desolate Island Huang Mo pondered for a moment before nodding his head. Palace Master Qing is right. This yellow fog world is indeed extremely beneficial to this child with his powerful physique. He's just lucky. He's just a little brat who hasn't entered the Saint realm. When we come out of the yellow fog world, we must get Gui Sho and Qinglongzi to teach him a lesson and take away his saint luck. The leaders of the other forces discussed among themselves. It was as if Zhuowen was already a fish on their chopping board. Zhuowen is finished. Looks like the leaders of the forces of the Netherworld realm will join forces to deal with him. When the 9 Netherworld conference ends, he won't be able to escape. Looking at this scene, countless cultivators who were paying attention to the 9 Netherworld conference shook their heads and sighed. At the same time, they felt pity. They all knew that Zhuowen had an immortal saint artifact, but they regretted that they didn't have the qualifications to compete for it. After all, the leaders of the forces of the Netherworld realm were already waiting outside the 9 Netherworld platform. They didn't have any chance to get a share. Before that, I want to make it clear that Zhuowen was a disciple of the Divine Academy. Sapphire Shore's tone suddenly changed as he stared sinisterly at Yang Ji, who was on the square platform of the Divine Nether Realm, and continued, everyone should be familiar with this matter. Brother Yang, when this kid comes out, I don't think your Divine Academy will interfere, right? With that said, the leaders of the other forces all looked at the square platform where the Divine Nether Realm was located. Even the other martial warriors were staring at Yang Ji. They really wanted to see how Yang Ji would answer. Yang Ji's gaze was indifferent as he coldly said, Sapphire Shore, it's not up to you to decide whether you want to interfere or not. Also, it's best that your Blue Dragon Hall doesn't meddle in the affairs of our Divine Academy. As he spoke, a blazing sun rose from Yang Ji's body. The aura of a heavenly saint spread out in all directions like a vast ocean, spreading throughout the surrounding space. Sapphire Shore's gaze narrowed as he said with some surprise, looks like you've completely consolidated the Heavenly Yin Saint realm and even cultivated to the peak of the Heavenly Yin Saint realm. The other leaders of the other 6 forces were also visibly moved. They also knew that Yang Ji had become a heavenly saint. However, they didn't expect Yang Ji to cultivate to the peak of the Heavenly Yin Saint realm in such a short period of 4 to 5 years. This speed was a little too fast. Yang Ji, I know you're a smart person. When the 9 Netherworld conference ends, I hope you won't do something you'll regret. Sapphire Shore snorted coldly as his gaze landed on the square platform of the Demon Nether Realm. He asked, Zhao Jun, as the Palace Master of the Demon God Palace, you can be considered the leader of a force standing at the peak of the 9 Netherworld realm. Shouldn't you make a statement now? Zhao Jun was the Palace Master of the Demon God Palace and also the Master of Yun Ran and Wu Dai. Her original body was a 1,000-year-old white snake that had cultivated into a demon saint. Although she was only at the peak of the profound sage realm, because she was a demon saint, her combat strength was stronger than the other leaders. She should be on the same level as Huang Mo on the deserted island, second only to Sapphire Shore and Yang Ji. Zhao Jun narrowed her beautiful eyes and shook her head slightly. I don't want to interfere in this matter. Palace Master Qing should choose someone else. Wu Dai was her favorite disciple. Wu Dai had pleaded with her many times before. If she met Zhuowen this time, she hoped that she wouldn't deal with Zhuowen. Although the temptation of her immortal saint artifact was great, she also knew how terrifying her immortal saint artifact's power was. Therefore, she decided not to participate in the dispute between Zhuowen and the other nether realms. Sapphire Shore frowned slightly when he heard Zhao Jun's refusal, but he didn't say anything. Since Zhao Jun wasn't willing, he wouldn't force it. At this moment, Cao Rong and Ji Ning were standing side by side in the sky above the 9 Netherworld platform. Lord Cao Rong, the leaders of the 7 Nether Realm forces, led by the Dragon Netherrealm, probably want to deal with Zhuowen. Do you want to interfere? Ji Ning asked Cao Rong in a low voice. Chapter 1489. Defiance and Challenge. Ji Ning nodded. Cao Rong was right. Zhuowen had comprehended 5 powers of laws all by himself, making him an above-average genius in the Central Plains. However, the more powers of laws one possessed, the more difficult it would be to reach sainthood compared to regular cultivators who had comprehended a single law. Cao Rong had seen far too many half-saint geniuses like Zhuowen who had comprehended multiple laws in the Central Plains, but there were not many of them who could reach sainthood in the end. Sainthood was an extremely difficult and powerful shackle for cultivators. Coupled with the difficulty of comprehending multiple laws, it was basically as difficult as ascending to the heavens. If Zhuowen could successfully reach sainthood, Cao Rong planned on recommending him to the chaotic divine temple. There was nothing wrong with helping Zhuowen. However, Zhuowen had not reached sainthood yet. There were many unknowns before him, so Cao Rong obviously would not be keen on helping Zhuowen. As a matter of fact, he would treat him coldly. In his opinion, no matter how talented a genius was, they would be trash if they did not mature. After all, there were far too many examples of geniuses dying halfway through. It was simply too many to mention. The third trial is about to come to an end. It's time to let these little fellows out, Cao Rong said indifferently. Sir Cao Rong, do you have an idea of the 9 spots this time? Ji Ning asked politely. Cao Rong smiled and said, of course I do. I plan on judging by the number of golden stripes and overall strength. With that, Cao Rong waved his hand and a powerful force surged out of his hand. The yellow mist in the world gradually receded, revealing its true appearance. The moment the yellow mist receded, the forbidden arts and restrictions in this world also disappeared. The remaining cultivators in this world all discovered that they could once again use the power of laws that they were unable to use before. The yellow mist has vanished. Does that mean the third trial has ended? Zhuowen and the others raised their heads. They were stunned when they saw the yellow mist recede. At this moment, Cao Rong and Ji Ning hovered above the world of yellow mist. They looked down at Zhuowen and the others silently and said, the time limit of the world of yellow mist is up. The third trial has officially ended. As these words were spoken, 2 figures rushed over from the other 2 directions of the yellow fog world. Zhuowen and the rest squinted their eyes when they saw the 2 figures. They were no strangers to these 2 figures. They were Gui Shuo and Qing Longzi, who had escaped earlier. The 2 of them also noticed that after the yellow mist disappeared, the power of law and saint energy in their bodies could be mobilized, so they immediately rushed out. The 2 of them stopped not far away from Zhuowen and stared at Zhuowen and the others with unfriendly gazes. Especially when they looked at Zhuowen, their gazes were filled with killing intent. Previously, in the world of yellow fog, they were unable to mobilize the power of laws within their bodies. They could not even use the saint artifacts in their spirit rings. Zhuowen was also very strange. His body was extremely tough, so he firmly suppressed them, causing them to be in a very sorry state. Now that the yellow mist had disappeared, they were finally able to use their own power of laws. They knew that Zhuowen was still not a saint, and he was no match for them at all. Sensing the murderous intent in Gui Shuo and Qing Longzi's eyes, Zhuowen ignored them. His gaze fell on Cao Rong. He knew that Cao Rong was about to announce the results. The biggest benefit of this 9 Serenity Conference is the saint luck born from the 9 Serenity Heaven. The second is the key to the Middle Land. I think that since all of you were able to hold on until now, you can be considered as the elite geniuses among all the cultivators in this 9 Serenity Conference. You all have more or less benefited from the saint luck, so I won't talk about this anymore. What I'm going to say next is that only 9 of you can get the key, but there are more than 10 of you. This time, I will rank you according to the number of golden stripes on your body and your overall strength. Do you have any objections? At this point, Cao Rong deliberately glanced at the crowd below. Zhuowen and the others naturally did not have any objections. They all shook their heads. Cao Rong nodded, then pointed at Zhuowen and said, your name is Zhuowen. This time, you obtained 25 golden stripes and are ranked first in the 9 Serenity Conference. As soon as Cao Rong said this, countless people in the surroundings were in an uproar. It was obvious that Zhuowen was ranked first in the 9 Serenity Conference, which was somewhat unexpected. Qing Longzi's eyes were even darker. Originally, he should have been the first in the 9 Serenity Conference, but he did not expect that Zhuoan would come out of nowhere. The leaders of the 7 forces led by Sapphire Shore of the 9 Serenity Realm were filled with murderous intent and even greed. The 9 Serenity Conference was about to end, which meant that the restrictions on the surface of the 9 Serenity platform would be lifted. At that time, Zhuoan would not be able to escape. Cao Rong's eyes were still indifferent. After announcing the first in the 9 Serenity Conference, she also announced the remaining 8 names. Second, Qing Longzi. Third, Yang Yi. Fourth, Lu Hantian. Fifth, Yun Ran. Sixth, Wu Dai. Seventh, Gatha. Eighth, Gui Sho. And ninth, Jian Mu. At this point, the rankings of the 9 Serenity Conference had been completely decided. Zhuoan had directly become the biggest dark horse this time, which shocked everyone. Lord Cao Rong, I'm sure you know the uniqueness of the Yellow Fog world. In there, we can't use our full strength at all. We can only rely on the power of Saint Luck to fight. It's actually not very fair for us. Suddenly, Qing Longzi stood out and glanced at Zhuoan, who was not far away. He continued, this kid's luck was pretty good before. Coupled with his despicable methods, he obtained quite a bit of Saint Luck. With his cultivation not yet in the Saint realm, he's not qualified to be the first in the 9 Serenity Conference. Cao Rong raised an eyebrow and said indifferently, are you questioning my decision? Qing Longzi's body trembled, and he quickly said, I don't dare. Cao Rong was from the Primal Chaos Temple. Qing Longzi didn't dare to offend him. He continued, no matter what, the number 1 cultivator of the 9 underworlds should be the strongest. If this young man can defeat me, he will be the number 1 cultivator of the 9 underworlds. Lu Hantian's expression changed when he heard Qing Longzi's words. He said, Qing Longzi, you really have the nerve to say that. You weren't a match for Zhuoan in the Yellow Fog world and fled like a stray dog. Now that you've come out, you're clamoring to challenge Zhuoan. Your actions are simply shameless. Hearing that, Qing Longzi coldly stared at Lu Hantian and said indifferently, since his strength is inferior to mine, what qualifications does he have to be the strongest in the 9 underworlds? This title is completely undeserved. You're already at the 3rd profound glimpse Sage Realm, and Zhuoan hasn't even entered the Sage Realm yet. Don't you feel ashamed challenging Zhuoan? If Zhuoan was at the same cultivation as you, would you dare to challenge him? Lu Hantian said indignantly. Qing Longzi didn't say anything. He looked at Cao Rong. He knew that the decision was in Cao Rong's hands. As long as Cao Rong agreed, everything would be fine. Lord Cao Rong, Qing Longzi is right. No matter what, the number 1 cultivator of the 9 underworlds should be deserved, right? A mere piece of trash who hasn't even entered the Saint realm isn't strong enough. How can he be qualified to be the number 1 in the 9 underworlds? Everyone below the Saint realm is an ant. Although this young man has grasped quite a bit of the power of laws, it's still unknown whether he can become a Saint realm cultivator. Letting a piece of trash who hasn't even become a Saint realm cultivator be the number 1 in the 9 underworlds is a bit inappropriate. Sapphire Shore stood outside the 9 underworld sky platform. He clasped his hands at Cao Rong and spoke politely. Cao Rong smiled faintly. I didn't say that you can't challenge him. If you think you have the strength of the number 1 in the 9 underworlds, you can challenge Zhuoan. If you can defeat him, you will be the number 1 in the 9 underworlds. You can even take away the Saint Luck in his body. This is the duty of the number 1 in the 9 underworlds. As soon as Cao Rong said that, the surrounding cultivators were in an uproar. Cao Rong's words were very clear. As long as someone felt that they were stronger than Zhuoan, they could challenge Zhuoan. If they defeated Zhuoan, they would become the new number 1 in the 9 underworlds. Qing Longzi and Gui Sho exchanged a look. They were both overjoyed. Cao Rong's words were undoubtedly beneficial to them. On the other hand, Lu Hantian and the other disciples of the Fine Gods Academy frowned. They knew that this rule was extremely disadvantageous to Zhuoan. Lord Cao Rong, Lu Hantian still wanted to speak, but Cao Rong glared at him. A terrifying saint aura crushed down. Lu Hantian couldn't help but tremble. He forcefully swallowed the words that he wanted to say. My decision cannot be disobeyed. If you dare to interrupt next time, you know the consequences. Cao Rong said. The terrifying Saint Aura slowly retracted. His face was still calm. Big Brother Hantian, since there are many people who are not convinced that I am the number one in the 9 underworlds, then I will accept the challenge. Otherwise, others will say that I am a coward. Zhuowen waved his hand at Lu Hantian and said indifferently. Lu Hantian sighed and didn't say anything. But when he thought of the power of the Buddha demon eye that Zhuowen had displayed, the worry in his heart lessened a lot. He knew that even if Zhuowen wasn't Qinglong's opponent, escaping shouldn't be a problem. Zhuowen took a step forward and stared at Gui Sha and Qinglongzi. He said indifferently, "The two of you are not convinced. Do you want to come together, or do you want to come one by one? We need to come together to kill you. I alone am enough." Gui Sha snickered. He took a step forward, and the demonic qi on his body surged and rushed into the sky. The demonic qi became more and more terrifying. It gathered into a huge demonic head in the sky. This demonic head held the sword of slaughter. Gui Sha's cultivation has advanced to the void sacred realm. He has also grasped the law of slaughter and the law of slaughter. The combination of the two laws is flawless. It's enough to make Zhuowen suffer. Outside the 9 underworld sky platform, Huang Mo revealed a smile. Looking at Gui Sha's attack, his eyes were full of confidence. Die. Gui Sha laughed sinisterly. He took a step forward and stood on the demonic head's shoulder. Then, he pressed down with his right hand. The demonic head held the sword of slaughter and slashed down from the sky. Countless astral winds swept out. Demonic qi soared into the sky and the space collapsed. What a powerful attack! Gui Sha's attack caused many martial artists to turn pale. It was obvious that Gui Sha had used his full strength from the start. Zhuowen stood in the air and opened his fire eye. Flames soared into the sky, and complex flame runes spread out on the surface of his body. At the same time, Zhuowen activated the full power of his sacred body. The golden veins combined with the flame runes, and golden flames burned on the surface of his body. Break. Chapter 1490. Qinglong's abstention. This punch contained the power of 10,000 katis and could break through all techniques. Catcher. The sword formed by the law of slaughter instantly collapsed. Zhuowen's legs bounced, and golden veins spread all over his body. A blazing golden light spread out. It was like there was a small sun in Zhuowen's body, giving off a supreme multicolored light. Gui Sha's face was extremely ugly. The sword formed by the law of slaughter had been directly shattered by Zhuowen's punch. This was beyond his expectations. Mosha law, demons and monsters. The Mosha law's power was above the law of slaughter. Gui Sha didn't believe that the Mosha law couldn't do anything to Zhuowen. As soon as he said that, countless demonic figures emerged from the huge demonic head. Demons, monsters, ghosts, and monsters all rushed out. It was as if 100 ghosts were walking in the night. Zhuowen punched out with his right hand. Golden flames soared into the sky. Countless demons and monsters screamed as they were surrounded by the terrifying golden flames and were annihilated. Thump, thump, thump. After annihilating these demons and monsters, Zhuowen's feet kicked the air 3 times, changing directions 3 times. He was like a rock spreading its wings as he descended in front of the huge demonic shadow. Rumble. Then, Zhuowen punched out again. The supreme power of the sacred body crushed down. It was as if countless mountains were falling from the sky. It was also as if countless meteorites were falling from the sky. Break. Gui Sha's pupils shrank. He roared and pressed down with his right hand. The terrifying demonic shadow stretched out a huge hand, clenched its fingers, and smashed towards Zhuowen. Compared to Zhuowen's body, the huge fist was as small as an ant. Zhuowen's fist was hundreds of meters long. Rumble. The 2 fists collided. Under the demonic shadow's fist, Zhuowen's tiny body straightened. His small body contained a majestic power that could shake the heavens and split the earth. Then, the demonic shadow's huge fist shattered into countless black clouds under Zhuowen's tiny fist. However, The demonic shadow's body was too big. A fist was just a small part of it. Thump, thump, thump. Zhuowen was extremely fast. He was like an ethereal shadow as he stepped through the air. The crowd was dazzled. They couldn't even see Zhuowen's body clearly. Every time the shadow flashed, the demonic shadow's body emitted clouds of black clouds. In less than half an hour, the demonic shadow's huge body was covered in holes as if it was pierced by thousands of swords. Whoosh! Zhuowen took a step. Zhuowen's his qi. And qi. Zhuowen stopped. So, this is your Mosha law? It can't even withstand a single blow, Zhuowen said with a mocking smile. Hearing this, Gui Sho's expression became extremely ugly. Zhuowen's words were simply an insult to him. Rumble. Rumble. Just as Zhuowen's voice fell, the demonic shadows formed by Mo Sho's laws exploded continuously. Then, the demonic shadows collapsed into nothingness. Gui Sho, who was standing on Mo Ying's shoulder, had an ashen expression as he fell from the sky in a sorry state. You forced me. Gui Sho flicked his finger. A black ring appeared in his right hand. The ring was covered with black spikes. Demonic qi filled the sky. Profound saint artifact. Ghost wheel. When Gui Sho took out the ring, many people recognized the profound saint artifact in his hand. Gui Sho is a void profound saint. He can use the true power of a profound saint artifact. He should be able to suppress Zhuowen. Desolate Island Master Huang Mo frowned and said, Die. Gui Sho shouted the moment he took out the ghost wheel. He swung his right hand. The ghost wheel flew towards Zhuowen like a flying saucer. In the process of rushing out, the ghost wheel transformed into endless black ring phantoms, densely packed like black raindrops. Just looking at them made one's scalp tingle. As for the Gui Sho, he was like a ghost, constantly darting about among the countless black ring phantoms, his whereabouts strange and unpredictable. Whoosh! Whoosh! Gui Sho appeared in front of Zhuowen. In the blink of an eye, he appeared behind Zhuowen. He didn't even cause any spatial fluctuations. His speed is so fast. Gui Sho is the absolute ruler of the ghost wheel. He can move freely within the range of the ghost wheel. Huang Mo said with a smile. Sapphire Shaw and the others were slightly shocked. There was no doubt that the ghost wheel's ability was very strange. It could even be called special. Zhuowen, die. Gui Sho's cold voice sounded in Zhuowen's ears. Then, Zhuowen realized that there were several whistling sounds around him. Around his body, 4 evil spirits appeared. They punched out at the same time. As the fist force blasted out, it created a terrifying pressure. It was as if the 4 of them were real. With the help of the profound saint artifact, your speed has increased a lot. But you think you can defeat me with this? You're too naive. Zhuowen sneered. Purple lightning spread out from his body. On his back, a pair of huge purple lightning wings grew. Void. The instant the purple lightning wings unfurled, Zhuowen clenched his right hand. The power of the void laws rose and spread around the purple lightning wings like tentacles, causing the purple lightning wings to faintly show traces of gray. Whoosh! Whoosh! With the support of the void law, the speed of Zhuowen's purple lightning wings rose to a terrifying level. When the fists of the 4 ghost fiends arrived, Zhuowen disappeared from where he stood, and the ghost fiends' attacks missed. What? He disappeared? Gui Sho's face was ferocious. He was shocked to find that Zhuowen's shadow was constantly flashing around the area covered by the ghost wheel. Wherever he passed, the void would collapse. Void collapse. When Zhuowen stopped a few hundred feet away from Gui Sho, he softly said. Suddenly, the void around the ghost wheel began to collapse, forming a black vacuum. Boom! Gui Sho, who had been flashing about within the ghost Shura wheel, froze in place when the void collapsed. At this moment, Gui Sho was motionless. He was suspended in the void, maintaining his charging posture. It was as if there were countless ropes wrapped around his body. Whoosh! Zhuowen casually walked to Gui Sho's side. Without any hesitation, he took the ghost wheel from Gui Sho's hand and slowly put it into his spirit ring. Gui Sho was flustered and exasperated, but there was nothing he could do. The void collapsed and he was enduring the terrifying power of the void collapse. He couldn't move his body. What about me? Zhuo Wen was neither hurried nor slow as he slammed his fist into Gui Shou's abdomen. Gui Shou let out a muffled groan as his back bent and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Coupled with the fact that he was still bearing the mighty force of the void collapse, his expression was extremely unsightly. Zhuo Wen did not care about Gui Shou's painful expression. He reached out his right hand and pinched Gui Shou's dantian. He then grabbed it and the sound of a balloon bursting could be heard. Dantian? You crippled my dantian? Gui Shou endured the pain as he cried out in despair. The surrounding warriors were in an uproar. Zhuo Wen was really ruthless. He did not kill Gui Shou but destroyed his dantian. This was making him suffer a fate worse than death. Creak. The island master, Huang Mo, clenched his fists and said coldly to Zhuo Wen, "Junior, that's enough. Don't go too far." Zhuo Wen slowly turned around and stared at Huang Mo. "Is this considered going too far? Compared to what you are about to do, I feel that this kind of thing is insignificant." Huang Mo's face froze and he said in a low voice, "Forgive people when possible. I told you not to kill Gui Shou." Looking at Huang Mo's unyielding attitude, Zhuo Wen couldn't be bothered with him. He clenched his right hand and grabbed Gui Shou's nascent soul. He pressed it between his eyebrows and casually threw Gui Shou's corpse on the ground. Plop! Gui Shou's body fell to the ground, stirring up a lot of dust. At the same time, it also made everyone's heart beat faster. Qing Longzi's expression became serious. He had not expected Gui Shou to be killed so easily. Zhuo Wen was not a saint yet. Wasn't his battle prowess a little too terrifying? As soon as Gui Shou died, his saint luck entered Zhuo Wen's forehead. Boom! The 25 golden lines on Zhuo Wen's forehead expanded again, giving birth to another 3 golden lines, turning into 28 golden lines. The moment the 3 golden tattoos appeared, Zhuo Wenming could clearly feel that the golden cocoon that Blackie had turned into in his sea of consciousness had expanded quite a bit. It even began to beat rhythmically, as if it was a heart full of vitality. "Zhuo Wen, once you have more than 30 golden lines, your saint luck will allow me to completely break out of my cocoon and transform into a butterfly." When the golden cocoon was beating, Xiao Hei's voice rose in Zhuo Wen's mind. 30 golden lines? Zhuo Wen murmured in a low voice. His gaze fell on Qing Longzi, who was not far away. He hovered in the air and looked down at the latter. "Qing Longzi, Gui Shou is dead. Don't you want to be first in 9 serenities? Come and fight." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Zhuo Wen's challenge immediately attracted the attention of many people. Everyone's gaze turned to Qing Longzi. Qing Longzi narrowed his eyes. His right foot that was about to step forward suddenly froze because Sapphire Shore had suddenly transmitted a message to him. "Qing Longzi, don't accept the challenge. This guy is a little strange. Although he has not become a saint yet, his battle prowess is extremely terrifying. In addition, this guy has 5 types of laws. I'm afraid it won't be easy for you to deal with him. Wait until the 9 Serenities conference is over." Hearing this, Qing Longzi's eyes flashed. After weighing the pros and cons, he finally accepted Sapphire Shore's suggestion. In fact, Qing Longzi did not care much about the battle prowess that Zhuo Wen had just displayed. What he was afraid of was that this guy had 5 types of laws on him at the same time. If all 5 types of laws were to erupt at the same time, even if he was a glimpse profound saint, it would be difficult to take him down. "I forfeit. Lord Cao Rong, the 9 Serenities conference can come to an end." Qing Longzi suddenly cupped his hands towards Cao Rong and said in a clear voice. He did not blush or feel embarrassed because he had forfeited. Whoosh! Qing Longzi's forfeiture caused quite a commotion. No one had expected Qing Longzi to forfeit. After all, he had solemnly vowed to challenge Shuo Wen for first place in the 9 underworlds. Could it be that Qing Longzi is afraid because of Gui Shou's death? It shouldn't be. After all, Qing Longzi is much stronger than Gui Shou. He shouldn't be afraid of Zhuo Wen. Chapter 1491. Ruthless suppression. You have to fight even if you don't want to. Zhuo Wen's eyes were cold and murderous. Without waiting for Qing Longzi to react, he stomped on the air and fell from the sky, smashing heavily onto Qing Longzi. Qing Longzi took a dozen steps back with his right foot. His eyes narrowed into slits as he stared at Zhuowen and said coldly, "Didn't I say it already? I've already forfeited. You provoked me so aggressively just now, and now you're forfeiting? Do you think that's possible?" Zhuowen said coldly. "Zhuowen, do you really think I'm afraid of you? You're a dying man anyway, so I won't argue with you." Qing Longzi snorted coldly as he stared at Cao Rong and said respectfully, "Lord Cao Rong, you can actually announce the end of the 9 Underworld Conference now. This Zhuowen attacked me without permission and has already violated the rules." Cao Rong smiled faintly and said meaningfully, "The challenge continues. Forfeiture is invalid." After saying that, Cao Rong stood in the air and looked down at Zhuowen and Qing Longzi as if he was watching a good show. "Let's fight." Zhuowen stomped on the ground with his right foot and shot toward Zhuowen like a cheetah. The power of the saint body surrounded his body, making him as hot as the sun. "Bastard!" Qing Longzi did not dare to be careless. He flicked his finger and took out a dragon-headed broadsword from his spirit ring. The blade was filled with terrifying saint aura. It was also a profound saint artifact. Slash. Qing Longzi slashed out horizontally. The surrounding blade light and sword shadows, the sun and the moon rose and fell. The terrifying law of fire burned in the blade light. It's said that Qing Longzi has comprehended 3 types of law. It seems that the law of fire is one of them. Zhuowen murmured as he took out the 9-star 8 trigram spear from his spirit ring. The law of fire also spread out, causing the surface of the spear to burn with intense flames. Rumble. The spear and the blade light collided. The flames soared into the sky and the space trembled. Eye of Ice. In the instant that the spear and the saber were in a deadlock, Zhuowen activated his Eye of Ice, and the law of ice swirled out. At this moment, the laws of ice and fire revolved around Zhuowen's body. The 2 different powers constantly intertwined, forming a massive illusory palace around Zhuowen. Suppress. Zhuowen swung his spear and blasted the palace phantom. The palace phantom tore through the air and landed on top of Qing Longzi's head. The illusory palace instantly materialized. Ice and fire energy overflowed and smashed towards Qing Longzi like a mountain. Qing Longzi took a deep breath, formed a seal with his right hand, and shouted, "Seal." At the same time, his right hand quickly drew a line in the air, drawing a large seal character on the surface of the ice and fire palace. A powerful sealing power poured out from the word seal, and the materialized ice and fire palace was sealed in mid-air, unable to move at all. Law of Seal. Looking at the sealed ice and fire palace, Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and revealed a grave expression. This Qing Longzi was indeed extraordinary. The power of the Law of Seal was rather strange, and there was nothing it could not seal. Even the ice and fire palace condensed from the laws of ice and fire could seal it in mid-air. Zhuowen did not panic. The law of void attached to the purple lightning wings, and he instantly escaped into the void. When he reappeared, he had already landed behind Qing Longzi. Ding! The spear pierced towards Qing Longzi's vital point at a tricky angle. Qing Longzi seemed to have sensed it. With his right foot as the center, he stomped his left foot and spun fiercely. The dragon-head saber accurately landed on the spear. Scram! Qing Longzi roared angrily. The muscles on his body swelled, and his body expanded from 10 feet to 15 feet. He was 5 times taller than Zhuowen, like a small mountain. Dang! 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 Qing Longzi's power increased by hundreds and thousands. Zhuowen retreated a few steps, and his right hand that held the spear cracked. He frowned slightly and said, "Law of Strength." Only the law of strength could increase one's power by so much in an instant. In the confrontation just now, Zhuowen felt that he wasn't facing a person, but an insurmountable mountain. That strength was as great as 10,000 catties. Law of Strength, Law of Fire, and Law of Seal. Zhuowen's gaze was cautious as he stared at Qing Longzi standing in front of him. He muttered in a low voice and frowned. Qing Longzi was surrounded by the power of 3 laws. His hair fluttered in the wind, and he looked valiant and heroic. "Looks like you're only SOSO. Looking at Zhuowen, who was at a disadvantage, Qing Longzi directly threw Sapphire Shaw's advice to the back of his mind. He stomped on the ground and rushed towards Zhuowen like an arrow released from a bow. The dragon-head saber slashed out, and the three laws lingered on the blade, erupting with a terrifying power. Boom! The law of the void attached to the purple lightning wings, causing Zhuowen's speed to reach an unprecedented level. The dragon-head saber slashed down, but it only cut Zhuowen's shadow. As for Zhuowen's real body, he had already escaped into the void. Whoosh! When Zhuowen appeared, he had already landed on the Icefire Palace that was sealed in midair. "You're really good at running away." Qing Longzi was stifled. Zhuowen, who had the law of the void, was too slippery, causing him to be unable to use his power. It was extremely sullen. "Running away?" "Not necessarily." Zhuowen's lips curled up, and his right palm pressed on the seal on the surface of the Icefire Palace. Desolation. The law of desolation swept out, and the seal gradually withered and dimmed like a withered leaf. Desolation could silently dry up a vigorous life force. Even if it was the seal's power, it could still dry it up. When the seal's power was corroded by desolation, Zhuowen's right palm touched the top of the Icefire Palace. Then, the void around the Icefire Palace collapsed, revealing a huge black hole. Whoosh! The Icefire Palace fell into the black hole and disappeared. You. Looking at Zhuowen's series of actions, Qing Longzi frowned, and an ominous feeling rose in his heart. Deng. However, Zhuowen's next step did not allow Qing Longzi to think too much. Zhuowen's feet stomped on the void, and a circular airwave spread out from the bottom of his feet. Zhuowen was like an arrow that left the bow, and he instantly appeared in front of Qing Longzi. Slash. Qing Longzi's dragon-head broadsword slashed at Zhuowen. The three laws fused in the broadsword radiance, and it emitted a terrifying power that could shake one's soul. However, Zhuowen was very cunning. The moment the broadsword radiance was about to reach him, he stepped into the void and dodged the attack. Whoosh! Behind Qing Longzi, the void split open, and Zhuowen stepped out. He stretched out his right hand, and the 9*8 trigram spear stabbed at Qing Longzi's back like an electric drill. Qing Longzi seemed to have foreseen the future. He placed the dragon-head broadsword on his back, and with a clang, the tip of the 9*8 trigram spear pressed against the blade of the dragon-head broadsword, creating countless sparks. Deng! Deng! Qing Longzi had the law of strength, and his strength could reach 10,000 pounds. Zhuowen leaped and retreated dozens of steps. "In terms of strength, you are no match for me." Qing Longzi sneered and turned to look at Zhuowen mockingly. However, the moment his gaze fell on Zhuowen, he was stunned. This was because Zhuowen had a mocking smile on his face, as if he was looking at a joke. Void. Rumble. While Qing Longzi was still in shock, a huge crack appeared in the void above his head. From that huge crack, a majestic palace of ice and fire came crashing down like a mountain. What? Qing Longzi finally knew why Zhuowen had such a mocking smile when he retreated. It turned out that this was his goal. Using the law of void, he first put the Icefire Palace into the void, and when he was not paying attention, he summoned the Icefire Palace that was hidden in the void and suppressed him in one fell swoop. "Do you think a mere palace can suppress me?" Qing Longzi sneered. Even if the Icefire Palace was huge and majestic, with the law of strength, he was not afraid of the suppression of the Icefire Palace. Break. Qing Longzi roared and threw out a punch, hitting the base of the Icefire Palace. The energy of the Icefire Palace dissipated. However, the strange thing was that after the Icefire Palace trembled for a while, it continued to suppress Qing Longzi. Zhuowen was trying his best to activate the Icefire Eyes. Waves of Icefire energy swept out from the Icefire Eyes and entered the Icefire Palace, causing the aura of the Icefire Palace to become even more vast and terrifying. At the same time, Zhuowen jumped up, and the mighty power of the divine body gathered on his legs. He then landed on the top of the Icefire Palace. Ever since he had obtained the basic manual of using the Holy Talisman, Zhuowen had become more proficient in using the Icefire Holy Talisman. His control of the Icefire Palace had almost reached the point of perfection. Even a glimpse profound saint like Qing Longzi would still be crushed by the Icefire Palace, without exception. At the same time, coupled with the power of Zhuowen's divine body, even a towering mountain could be crushed with a stomp, let alone Qing Longzi. Qing Longzi roared angrily, and the muscles on his body swelled. He kept struggling, but he was powerless in front of the Icefire Palace and the power of the divine body. In the end, he was completely suppressed by the Icefire Palace. The vast and magnificent Icefire Palace stood on the square of the 9 Nether Sky platform. It was like a mountain, and many people looked up at it. However, the Icefire Palace was not stable. From time to time, there would be sounds of violent bombardment. Apparently, Qing Longzi was wantonly destroying things inside. Along with the bombardment, there was also Qing Longzi's cursing. 7 emotions, precious seal. Zhuowen's eyes were dark, and the Icefire eyes flashed with a strange cold light. At the same time, he took out the 7 seals of the 7 emotions precious seal, and they floated around his body. With the 7 emotions precious seal and the power of the divine body, Zhuowen was like a god that had descended to the mortal world. After doing this, Zhuowen did not hesitate to enter the Icefire Palace. Then, the sound of fighting could be heard from the Icefire Palace. At the same time, there were mournful screams. After about 15 minutes, Zhuowen jumped out of the Icefire Palace again. In his right hand, he was carrying an extremely miserable figure. It's Qing Longzi. Chapter 1492. Qing Longzi's death. Qing Longzi was in an extremely sorry state. He spat out blood and his chest was dyed red. Qing Longzi's aura was extremely weak, as if he was about to die. Zhuowen was holding the dragon-head broadsword in his hand. This, outside the 9th Underworld platform, Sapphire Shore and a large group of cultivators in the Blue Dragon Hall were all in a daze. As for Cao Rong, she squinted her eyes and stared at the huge Icefire Palace under Zhuowen's feet. Well done. Yang Yi leaned against a stone pillar in the plaza with a meaningful smile at the corner of his mouth. He first glanced at the Ice and Fire Palace, then looked at Zhuowen, whose eyes were filled with ice and fire. The smile on his face grew even wider. The Icefire Palace had extremely violent ice and fire energy. Especially after Zhuowen learned how to use the Icefire sacred symbol, the ice and fire energy in the Icefire Palace became even more terrifying. Even Qing Longzi would be suppressed miserably if he was trapped inside. Zhuowen had a lesser success sacred body and the 7 emotions treasured seal. Qing Longzi, who was suppressed by the ice and fire energy, was naturally no match for Zhuowen. Speaking of which, after Zhuowen merged with the Buddha demon eye, he had also comprehended the laws of the Buddhist and demon clones. The Buddhist clone's law was the karma law, while the demon clone's law was the moksha law. In addition to these 2 laws, the number of laws Zhuo when possessed had already reached as many as 7. Although Zhuowen's cultivation was not as good as Qing Longzi's, he had the sacred body, the 7 emotions treasured seal, and the Icefire Palace's suppression on Qing Longzi. Qing Longzi was defeated by Zhuowen. You want to compete with me for the number 1 spot in 9th Underworld? Zhuowen raised his right hand and lifted the weak Qing Longzi in front of him, then said word by word. Qing Longzi could barely open his eyes. His face was filled with fear. He shook his head and said, No. No, the number 1 spot in 9th Underworld is yours. I'm not as good as you. Let me go. Little bastard, release Qing Longzi. Sapphire Shore, who had regained his senses, roared angrily. The veins on his forehead bulged, and his expression was ferocious. At the same time, he was somewhat shocked. He also did not expect that Zhuowen's strength was actually so terrifying. Qing Longzi's cultivation had at least reached the 3rd profound glimpse profound saint realm. Coupled with the profound saint artifact, the dragon-head broadsword, as well as the power of 3 laws on his body, perhaps even a 4th pure profound saint realm expert might not be a match for Qing Longzi. However, in the hands of Zhuowen, they were beaten to such a miserable state. It was truly unbelievable. Don't you know you're very noisy? If you say another word, I'll directly kill Qing Longzi. Zhuowen slightly turned his head and coldly stared at Sapphire Shore. Furthermore, he lifted Qing Longzi and pointed him in the direction of Sapphire Shore. Sapphire Shore's expression froze. Immediately, His face flushed red and almost turned purple. Zhuowen's actions were simply too arrogant. He actually dared to directly provoke him. It was truly too hateful. However, Sapphire Shore did not dare to flare up. After all, Qing Longzi was in the hands of Zhuowen. In addition, the restriction of the 9th Underworld platform had not been opened yet. He simply could not enter the 9th Underworld platform to deal with Zhuowen. Zhuowen, I know you're a smart person. If you let Qing Longzi go, then I promise to give you a chance to live. How about it? Sapphire Shore calmed down and said in a deep voice. Zhuowen smiled slightly. His smile was like a flower, extremely brilliant. Then, he landed on the ground and threw Qing Longzi to the ground. Qing Longzi fell to the ground and struggled a few times. It was actually difficult for him to stand up for a while. Didn't you want me to let you go? Kneel on the ground, kowtow to me 3 times, and admit that I, Zhuowen, am the number 1 in the 9th Underworld. Then, I will consider letting you go, Zhuowen said indifferently. Qing Longzi's body trembled. His eyes were filled with hatred as he stared at Zhuowen. Without a doubt, Zhuowen's request was too much. If Qing Longzi really knelt down and kowtowed to Zhuowen 3 times, it would not only be a slap to Qing Longzi's face, but it would also be a slap to the Blue Dragon Hall, the force behind Qing Longzi. Zhuowen, don't go overboard. Sapphire Shore's face was cold. Shut up. Zhuowen said coldly to Sapphire Shore. He did not even look at Sapphire Shore. He just stared at Qing Longzi and said, if you don't do this, you will die immediately. If you do it and satisfy me, I will consider letting you go. Zhuowen's disregard angered Sapphire Shore. The powerful saint aura in his body almost flowed out uncontrollably. Qing Longzi's face was ugly. His eyes flickered and he was hesitant. If you don't do it, then die. Zhuowen waved his hand impatiently. The 9-star 8 trigram spear in his hand drew a mysterious trajectory and swept towards Qing Longzi's forehead. Plop! The moment the 9-star 8 trigram spear was about to pierce Qing Longzi's forehead, Qing Longzi knelt on the ground and kowtowed 3 times. After kowtowing, Qing Longzi pressed his forehead against the ground and did not dare to raise his head. He did not dare to look at the expressions of the other people and the upper echelons of the Blue Dragon Hall. Qing Longzi clenched his fists tightly. Between his dignity and life, he chose life in the end. Hua! Seeing Qing Longzi kowtow 3 times without hesitation, the surrounding cultivators who were paying attention to the 9th Underworld Sky platform were in an uproar. Qing Longzi was the number 1 genius of the Blue Dragon Hall. He was also recognized as the number 1 expert of the younger generation in the 9th Underworld realm. Now, the number 1 expert of the younger generation in the 9th Underworld realm was kneeling in front of another young man in front of everyone. This young man was called Zhuowen. Everyone knew that Zhuowen's name would cause huge waves in the 9th Underworld realm after the 9th Underworld convention. Sapphire Shore's face was extremely ugly. Qing Longzi's kowtows were like kowtowing to his heart, causing him to feel a little pain. Zhuowen slowly walked in front of Qing Longzi. He lifted his right foot and stepped on Qing Longzi's head. He looked at Sapphire Shore and said indifferently, Sapphire Shore, this is the number 1 genius that the Blue Dragon Hall has nurtured. His strength is indeed not bad. Is that enough? Qing Longzi has already kowtowed to you 3 times. Are you not going to fulfill your promise? Sapphire Shore said in a deep voice. Enough. Zhuowen nodded seriously. The golden veins on his right foot extended and a majestic power surged out from the bottom of Zhuowen's foot. Qing Longzi was not prepared at all. His head was directly crushed by this majestic power. He was deader than dead. Even his nascent soul did not manage to escape. Hiss! Hiss! Looking at the headless corpse of Qing Longzi, the sound of people sucking in cold air resounded from the surroundings. Ah! Little bastard, I must kill you. Qing Longzi had already kowtowed 3 times, but you still killed him. Sapphire Shore was stunned for a moment. When he came back to his senses, his eyes were bloodshot and he let out a beast-like roar. The upper echelons of the Blue Dragon Hall behind Sapphire Shore were all furious like wild beasts. This Zhuowen was too presumptuous, too hateful. Even the leaders of the other secluded realms felt a chill in their hearts when they saw this scene, as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. Zhuowen's ruthlessness made even these saints who had cultivated for hundreds and thousands of years feel a chill. I said that I would consider sparing Qing Long's life. It's just a consideration. I won't definitely let him go, Zhuowen said unhurriedly. His tone almost drove Sapphire Shaw crazy. He wanted nothing more than to swallow Zhuowen alive. Zhuowen, you can't escape. I, Sapphire Shaw, will make sure you die miserably. Sapphire Shaw shouted angrily. You must be very angry and helpless, right? Back then, when you targeted me many times and wanted to kill me, did you ever think that you would have such a day? Also, our Riker was killed by your Blue Dragon Hall's sneak attack. All these years, your Blue Dragon Hall did not even let my Riker descendants go. Compared to your Blue Dragon Hall, my way of doing things is already merciful. Zhuowen sneered. The Azure Dragon Palace and the Long Clan were old enemies. They had formed a grudge over 10,000 years. This Zhuowen is a descendant of the Riker from 10,000 years ago? Cao Rong raised his eyebrows and looked at Zhuowen in surprise. Cao Rong naturally knew about the Riker. 10,000 years ago, the Riker was extremely powerful. It was a huge force that had produced immortal sage experts. However, most of the elites of the Riker, including the Patriarch of the Riker, participated in the Great War 10,000 years ago. In the end, they suffered heavy losses. The Blue Dragon Hall took advantage of this opportunity to launch a sneak attack on the Riker. They killed all the Riker descendants and took over the resources of the Riker. After 10,000 years of development, they became the ruler of the Eastern Land. Many of the surrounding martial artists were surprised. They finally knew why Sapphire Shaw was targeting Zhuowen. It turned out that Zhuowen was a descendant of the Riker. Whoosh! After Zhuowen died, the Saint Luck on his body turned into a huge golden light and rushed into the depths of Zhuowen's eyebrows. Suddenly, the number of Saint runes between Zhuowen's eyebrows reached 32. The Saint aura in Zhuowen's body had reached an unprecedented level. His Saint aura was much stronger than that of an ordinary profound sage. Xiao Hei is about to break out of the cocoon. The moment the golden runes broke through 30, Zhuowen's eyes showed a trace of eagerness. He could clearly feel that the golden cocoon in his sea of consciousness was beating faster and faster. It was as if something was about to come out of it. Zhuowen's aura was also getting stronger and stronger. Zhuowen knew that breaking through to the Saint realm was imminent. This little guy has broken through 30 golden runes. Is he finally showing signs of breaking through to the Saint realm? Cao Rong narrowed his eyes as he looked at Zhuowen and asked in surprise. Lord Cao Rong, the Nine Nether Conference should be over now, right? I think we should be qualified to enter the Nine Nether platform, right? Sapphire Shaw suddenly asked Cao Rong. Cao Rong nodded and said, let's talk about it after I give the 9 keys to the top 9 spots of the Nine Nether Conference. Haha, since Qing Longzi and Gui Shaw have fallen, the 9 spots will be moved forward by 2 spots. As soon as these words came out, Sapphire Shaw's eyes turned gloomy, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he stared at Zhuowen, gnashing his teeth in anger. In the end, the spots of the Nine Nether Conference were determined. They were Zhuowen, Yang Yi, Lu Hantian, Yun Ran, Wu Dai, Gatha, Jian Mu, Long Tian, and Yang Yang. Chapter 1493. Sage Tribulation. This is the key to the 9 Netherworld Great Array. With this key, you will be able to activate the 9 Netherworld Great Array and teleport to the Central Plains. Cao Rong waved his sleeve, and 9 golden rays of light flew out and landed in the palms of Zhuowen and the others. Zhuowen took a closer look and discovered a golden shuttle-shaped object lying quietly in his palm. He knew that this was the key that Cao Rong was talking about. After giving out the key, Cao Rong's gaze fell on Zhuowen as he said, "You are Zhuowen, right? To be able to comprehend 5 types of laws, your talent is the best in the Eastern Plains. Thank you for your kindness, Lord Cao Rong." Zhuowen lowered his head and said respectfully. Cao Rong was an existence on the same level as the Burning Heaven sect master, Zhu Tianzong. Furthermore, He had the primal chaos temple as his backer. Even Zhu Tianzong didn't dare to provoke him. Zhuo Wen naturally did not dare to slight such an existence in the slightest. The other cultivators also looked at Cao Rong. Clearly, they were surprised that Cao Rong would suddenly speak to Zhuo Wen alone. 32 Golden Patterns. It seems that you will soon break through to the profound sage realm. It should be within this period of time. I will give you 2 months. If you can successfully pass the sage tribulation and become a profound sage in these 2 months, I will recommend you to the primal chaos temple. How about it? Cao Rong said indifferently. Instantly, a huge commotion broke out around the 9 Netherworld Heaven platform. Countless cultivators went crazy. The faces of Sapphire Shore and the leaders of the other forces were extremely gloomy. They also didn't expect that Cao Rong would intervene at this juncture and want to recommend Zhuowen to the Primal Chaos Temple. Once Zhuowen became a member of the Primal Chaos Temple, it would be difficult for them to do anything to him. Lord Cao Rong, I'm afraid this isn't appropriate. This Zhuowen hasn't become a profound sage yet. If you recommend him to the Primal Chaos Temple, I'm afraid that it will lower the prestige of the Primal Chaos Temple, right? Sapphire Shore gritted his teeth and said to Cao Rong. Cao Rong stared coldly at Sapphire Shore and said, "Do I need you to comment on my decision?" Sapphire Shore's expression froze, his gaze uncertain. He cupped his hands and said, "This lowly one dares not. If you don't dare, then shut your mouth. Don't be like a fly that buzzes about in front of me." Cao Rong flicked his sleeve and spoke extremely impolitely. Sapphire Shore lowered his head slightly and did not speak, but his eyes were filled with a strong killing intent. Lord Cao Rong plans to recommend Zhuowen to the Chaos Temple? Compared to the gloomy expressions of Sapphire Shore and the rest, the people from Cisco Academy were pleasantly surprised, especially Xiao Yu, who was grinning from ear to ear. Zhuowen was from Aoyuan Peak, and he could be considered half a master to Zhuowen. Seeing Zhuowen's great achievements, he was naturally overjoyed as his master. However, Lord Cao Rong also said that he would give Zhuowen 2 months. If he can successfully become a profound sage and pass the tribulation of a profound sage in these 2 months, then he will recommend him to the Chaos Temple. Yang Ji was not as optimistic as Xiao Yu. He was a profound sage expert and knew very well how difficult it was to become a profound sage. Moreover, Zhuowen possessed several laws and had a powerful armor soul like Xiao He. Therefore, it was far more difficult for Zhuowen to become a profound sage than ordinary people. I hope that Zhuowen can successfully become a profound sage in these 2 months. Jiang Xian and Wenbai looked at each other and said. Zhuowen had really angered everyone in this 9 Nether conference. Apart from the Divine Netherrealm and the Demon Netherrealm, the other 7 powerful forces of the 9 Netherrealms wanted to kill him. If Zhuowen didn't have the support of the Chaos Temple in the end, he would have been doomed. Zhuowen, this is the biggest concession I can make to you. Do you accept it? Cao Rong continued. Zhuowen smiled and said, I accept. Why wouldn't I accept it? Cao Rong acted swiftly and decisively. Seeing that Zhuowen had agreed, he arranged for the rest of the people from the 9 Serene Heaven platform to leave and allowed the eliminated cultivators to return to their respective square platforms. Even the other 8 people who had obtained the key to the 9 Nether Great Array left the 9 Nether Conference under Cao Rong's arrangement. In a short while, the huge 9 Nether Sky platform became empty and sparsely populated. You can stay in this square for 2 months. In these 2 months, no one will disturb you. I'm looking forward to your breakthrough to the profound sage realm. Cao Rong took a deep look at Zhuowen, then he and Ji Ning landed on a platform at the top of a stone pillar at the end of the square. 2 months. That should be enough. Zhuowen muttered in a low voice. Then, he sat down cross-legged on the ground. The 32 golden lines between his brows were like the stars in the night sky, dazzling and sharp. The golden cocoon suspended in Zhuowen's sea of consciousness shone with a dazzling golden light. The beating on the surface of the golden cocoon was much faster than before. Zhuowen's consciousness sank into his sea of consciousness and landed beside the golden cocoon. He reached out his right hand and placed it on the surface of the cocoon. BZZT. Golden lightning filled the air, causing Zhuowen to take a few steps back. This Xiaohei dog is at the most critical moment of his breakthrough. Even if you want to call him, it's useless. You can only wait for him to break out of the cocoon. Cheng Huang stood on the back of the divine turtle in the depths of Zhuowen's sea of consciousness and slowly flew over. He looked at Zhuowen and said indifferently, "Is 2 months enough?" Zhuowen asked solemnly, "I'm not sure about that. You can only wait for now." Cheng Huang shook his head and continued, "Your Saint Tribulation will probably be very terrifying. Be careful when you break through to the profound sage realm." Hearing this, Zhuowen's heart trembled. He nodded seriously. If even Cheng Huang said so, his Saint Tribulation would probably be extraordinary. Then I'll wait for 2 months. Thinking of this, Zhuowen's consciousness sat cross-legged in front of the golden cocoon. He knew that this matter could not be rushed. While Zhuowen sat cross-legged in the square and prepared to break through to the profound sage realm, Sapphire Shore and the others had extremely ugly expressions. "Palace Master Qing, what should we do? Lord Cao Rong actually wants to recommend Zhuowen to the Chaos Temple." The Imperial Exterminator of the League of Assassins frowned and said unwillingly, "The Imperial Exterminator is right. Once Zhuowen successfully breaks through to the profound sage realm, with the 5 types of laws he has, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for us to kill him. With Cao Rong, we won't have a chance to kill him," the Desolate Island Master said coldly. The 100 Flowers Court Master, Bai Meisheng, said in a low voice, "What we're most worried about now is not that. Instead, we're worried about his talent. Once he breaks through to the profound sage realm and enters the Chaos Temple, his cultivation will definitely improve by leaps and bounds. When he comes out of the Chaos Temple, he'll definitely ascend to the 9th Netherworld realm. At that time, we'll be in trouble. This guy must die. We must pay any price to let him die on the 9th Netherworld sky platform." The Saint Martial Sect Master, Wu Hu, said with a murderous look in his eyes. The leaders of the 6 forces came to an agreement. They did not plan to let Zhuowen go. They wanted to kill Zhuowen on the 9th Netherworld sky platform. Therefore, the 6 of them turned their heads and looked at Sapphire Shore. Sapphire Shore was a heavenly saint elite and also the strongest elite in the 9th Netherworld realm. They knew that he must have some plans. Sapphire Shore narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "This guy must die. However, I still need a month's time. If he doesn't break through to the profound sage realm in a month's time, I'll find a way to break the 9th Netherworld sky platform's seal and hold Cao Rong back. You guys kill Zhuowen, that little bastard." Hearing that, the 6 of them were stunned. The seal on the 9th Netherworld sky platform was set up by Cao Rong himself. Although Sapphire Shore was a heavenly saint elite, he was only at the Yin Sky Saint realm. On the other hand, Cao Rong was already at the Yang Sky Saint realm. Even if Sapphire Shore wanted to break the seal, it would not be easy for him to hold Cao Rong back. "The 6 of you, don't hesitate. I've already broken through and reached the Yang Sky Saint realm. The seal on the 9th Netherworld sky platform can't stop me." While the 6 of them were hesitating, Sapphire Shore's voice rang in their minds. Obviously, Sapphire Shore was secretly sending a message to the 6 of them. The 6 of them narrowed their eyes and looked at each other. They did not expect Sapphire Shore to break through to the Yang Sky Saint realm. If that was the case, Sapphire Shore could compete with Cao Rong. Moreover, the 6 of them also remembered the foundation of the Blue Dragon Hall. It was passed down from the Riker 10,000 years ago. The Blue Dragon Hall should not be this weak. If the Blue Dragon Hall really wanted to eliminate Zhuowen, they might really be able to do it. If we let Zhuowen go now, there will be endless trouble in the future. It will be a disaster for us. The Chaos Temple can nurture him into an extremely terrifying existence. You'd better not hesitate anymore." Sapphire Shore continued to send a message. His words revealed the great threat of Zhuowen. The 6 of them looked at each other and nodded in the end. If Cao Rong did not plan to recommend Zhuowen to the Chaos Temple, Zhuowen would not be such a big threat. However, Cao Rong had taken a liking to Zhuowen and had the intention of protecting Zhuowen. How could the 6 of them not feel a sense of urgency? Then let's wait for a month. I hope Hall Master Ching can handle this matter properly. The 6 of them nodded. They did not have much suspicion towards Sapphire Shore. After all, the Blue Dragon Hall was the strongest force in the 9 Netherworld realm. It had a deep foundation and was also extremely mysterious. In addition to the feud between the Blue Dragon Hall and the Riker, Sapphire Shore's desire to kill Zhuowen was definitely much heavier than theirs. Time passed slowly, but the atmosphere in the 9 Netherworld platform became more and more subtle. Especially the other martial artists in the 9 Netherworld realm. Although they were not strong, they could feel the subtle atmosphere. Zhuowen had a Celestial Saint artifact, and everyone in the 9 Netherworld realm had the right to kill him. However, Cao Rong had taken a liking to him and wanted to recommend him to the Chaos Temple. Sapphire Shore and the others had the intention of killing Zhuowen. Everyone wanted to know what Sapphire Shore and the others would do. Could it be that they were going to wait for Zhuowen to break through to the Saint Realm and be openly brought back to the Central Plains by Cao Rong? Sizzle. A month had finally passed. Zhuowen, who was sitting cross-legged in the middle of the plaza, had a terrifying saint aura around him. It was much more powerful than before, and the surface of his body was emitting a dazzling golden light. I'm afraid that Zhuowen is really going to break through to the Saint Realm. Looking at the terrifying saint aura on Zhuowen's body, many people were surprised and expectant. Zhuowen had comprehended 5 types of laws by himself. The commotion caused when he broke through to the Saint Realm would definitely be terrifying. Everyone wanted to see what kind of tribulation Zhuowen would face. Chapter 1494. 18 Lightning Tribulations. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, terrifying dark clouds began to gather in the sky. Dense lightning spread through the clouds, as if they contained countless lightning snakes. At the end of the plaza, on the platform at the top of the stone pillars, Cao Rong slowly stood up. His gaze fell on the lightning tribulation in the sky with a solemn expression. This child's tribulation is about to descend, Cao Rong muttered softly. This lightning tribulation is so terrifying. Ji Ning stood behind Cao Rong with a solemn expression. Although the lightning tribulation hadn't started yet, he could feel that it would be extraordinary from the lightning brewing in the tribulation clouds. Do you think the tribulation of a fellow who needs 32 golden patterns to break through will be simple? Cao Rong said with a smirk. Ji Ning nodded in understanding. This Zhuowen was indeed not simple. Not only did he have 5 types of laws, but he also had 32 golden patterns, yet he still hadn't broken through to the Sage Realm. This was enough to show that this child was a freak. It wasn't just Cao Rong and Ji Ning. Countless cultivators who were paying attention to Zhuowen on the 9th Underworld platform all looked at the dark clouds in the sky. Tribulation clouds, this Zhuowen is probably going to break through to the Sage Realm. This is Zhuowen's tribulation. What a terrifying heavenly might. This child's tribulation will definitely be extraordinary. When everyone felt the terrifying heavenly might leaking from the tribulation clouds, their hearts couldn't help but tremble. This was a natural reaction when facing a superior. Hall Master Ching. At this moment, Yaksha Hai, Eternal Night Underworld King, Imperial Killer of the League of Assassins, Bai Mai Sheng of the 100 Flowers Park, Undying Old Monster of the Undying Sacred Altar, Woohoo of the Saint Martial Sect, and Desolate Island Desert all gathered their gazes on Sapphire Shore. The 6 of them were a little anxious. In just a month, Zhuowen had already touched the threshold of the profound Sage Realm. Now, he had even attracted the tribulation of the Sage Realm. Once Zhuowen passed this tribulation, he would become a sage. At that time, his battle strength would be unparalleled. Sapphire Shore raised his head slightly. His deep gaze landed on the depths of the 9 underworlds heaven as he murmured, "Soon. Just wait, it's about to begin." Looking at Sapphire Shore's appearance, the 6 of them looked at each other in confusion. When they sensed that the Sapphire Shore before them seemed to be waiting for something, the 6 of them became suspicious. Rumble. A bolt of lightning as thick as a bucket struck down from the tribulation clouds. It cut through the void and was dazzling to the eye. This bolt of lightning was extremely terrifying. Everywhere it passed, space collapsed and formed countless black voids, causing it to seem extremely strange. If an ordinary martial artist was struck by this bolt of lightning, they would probably not be able to withstand it for too long and would be turned into dust. I wonder if this Zhuowen can withstand this lightning. Everyone's eyes fell on Zhuowen, all of them revealing looks of anticipation. After all, the first bolt of lightning was already so terrifying. According to the nature of the tribulation, its power would definitely become more and more terrifying. This is the 18th thunder tribulation. The tribulation clouds will brew 18 bolts of heavenly lightning, each more terrifying than the previous one. This should be the most ordinary tribulation of the sage realm. Cao Rong narrowed his eyes, revealing a puzzled look. The 18th thunder tribulation was the most ordinary tribulation of the sage realm. Only those half-sages who had comprehended the most ordinary laws would usually face this kind of ordinary tribulation of the sage realm. However, Zhuowen was not an ordinary half-sage. This guy was a monstrous genius who had comprehended 5 kinds of laws. Now that such an ordinary tribulation of the sage realm had descended, it was really shocking. Not only Cao Rong, but the surrounding martial artists also revealed puzzled looks. Obviously, some of them did not quite understand Zhuowen's tribulation of the sage realm. The 18th thunder tribulation. Zhuowen raised his head and stomped his foot. A terrifying force spread from the bottom of his feet. Immediately, the ground beneath his feet crumbled inch by inch. Zhuowen shot towards the sky like an arrow that had been released from a bow. Rumble. The bucket-like thunderbolt heavily blasted Zhuowen's body. Countless electric sparks spread from Zhuowen's head to his feet, flashing constantly. He looked like the god of thunder. The great Tao indestructible divine body's main purpose is to temper. There is an ancient saying that a sword's edge must be tempered. A real sword should be tempered thousands of times to become a real sharp sword that can cut through iron like mud. This is the principle behind the myriad Tao immortal divine body. The divine body is like a sword. If you really want to improve it, you have to go through a lot of tempering. The best furnace to temper the divine body is the thunder tribulation, and the sage tribulation is undoubtedly the best medium to temper the divine body. After resisting the first thunder tribulation of the 18 thunder tribulations with his physical body, Zhuowen turned his head and felt indescribably comfortable. Moreover, he faintly felt that after being tempered by the thunderbolt, the great Tao indestructible divine body in his body had sped up, making the power of his divine body stronger. This guy's physical body is so terrifying. No wonder his performance in the 3rd stage of the 9 Underworld Conference was so outstanding and terrifying. Zhuowen's action of resisting the first thunder tribulation with his physical body caused an uproar among many people. Although the 18 thunder tribulations were the most common sage tribulation, each thunder tribulation was extremely terrifying. If an ordinary half-saint had resisted the thunder tribulation like Zhuowen, he would have been turned into ashes. At the same time, many people recalled Zhuowen's various performances in the world of yellow fog, and they felt somewhat relieved. The world of yellow fog had restrictive spells. Original energy, mind power, and the power of law could not even be opened by spiritual rings. However, the suppression of the restrictive spell on the body was not very obvious. Zhuowen's body was so strong that his starting point in the world of yellow fog was much higher than that of others. It was no wonder that he had the last laugh. Boom, boom, boom. Next, 9 terrifying thunderbolts descended from the tribulation clouds in a row, each more terrifying than the previous one. However, Zhuowen still used his physical body to receive these terrifying lightning bolts. Moreover, what was shocking was that Zhuowen's physical body didn't collapse or become charred because of the lightning tribulation. Instead, it emitted a sparkling and translucent color. Some sharp-minded people could even find that after being tempered by the first 10 thunderbolts, the aura of Zhuowen's body was even more terrifying than before. It seems that this kid is using the thunder tribulation to temper his body. Cao Rong stood far away on the platform, his eyes falling on Zhuowen from beginning to end. Especially after observing that Zhuowen's physical aura had strengthened, he immediately thought of Zhuowen's purpose. I don't know what kind of body tempering secret technique this kid has cultivated. It's actually so magical. If I'm not wrong, this kid's physical body is already comparable to that of an ordinary profound sage. The strength of Zhuowen's physical body had even shocked Cao Rong. Boom. Boom. Next, the remaining 8 thunder tribulations of the 18 thunder tribulations continuously descended from the sky. Zhuowen relied on the power of his saint body and withstood the remaining 8 thunder tribulations one by one. It was worth mentioning that the power of the 18th thunder tribulation of the 18 thunder tribulations was indeed extremely terrifying. The 18th thunder tribulation was the dragon transformation thunder tribulation. Countless thunderbolts condensed in the tribulation clouds and turned into a thunder dragon that swooped down from the clouds. Its power was so powerful that even a void profound sage realm sage would not dare to compete with it. However, Zhuowen still relied on his saint body to withstand the dragon transformation thunder tribulation. Moreover, the dragon transformation thunder tribulation's tempering effect on him was the best among the 18 thunder tribulations. He withstood the 18 thunder tribulations so easily. Looking at Zhuowen, who had passed the dragon transformation thunder tribulation, everyone was surprised. The sage tribulation, which was feared by everyone, was actually passed by Zhuowen so easily. It's over just like that. Cao Rong frowned slightly. Even he was a little surprised that Zhuowen's sage tribulation was actually so simple. No, this child's sage tribulation is not so simple because the tribulation clouds have not dispersed yet. Ji Ning, who was beside Cao Rong, suddenly exclaimed. Cao Rong's gaze focused as he stared at the tribulation clouds above Zhuowen. He said in a low voice, "If I'm not wrong, this is the tribulation of tribulations. This is an extremely rare sage tribulation." Tribulation of tribulations? Ji Ning was shocked. He naturally knew about the tribulation of tribulations. Generally, the tribulation of tribulations was divided into external and internal tribulations. Among them, the external tribulations were more ordinary thunder tribulations. As for the tribulation of tribulations, the true tribulation was contained within the internal tribulations. The internal tribulations contained world-shaking disasters, and the thunder tribulations contained within would definitely be unexpected. The 18 thunder tribulations just now should be an external tribulation. I wonder what kind of sage tribulation is the internal tribulation of the tribulation of tribulations this time? Cao Rong muttered in a low voice. At this moment, not only did Cao Rong discover the strangeness of the tribulation clouds, but the others on the 9th Underworld Heaven platform also noticed the abnormality because the tribulation clouds in the sky did not dissipate after Zhuowen passed the 18 thunder tribulations. It's the tribulation of tribulations. Finally, someone who knew what was good for him exclaimed in shock. Then, there was an uproar in the surroundings as people discussed animatedly. The tribulation of tribulations. Generally, the internal tribulations are extremely terrifying and almost destroy the world. I'm afraid this kid is going to suffer. Sapphire Shaw's eyes flickered, revealing a trace of hesitation. The time was very ripe now, and the hidden hand that he had set up could already take action. However, he was very afraid of Cao Rong. After all, Cao Rong had the Chaos Temple behind him. If there were any changes to the plan, then his Blue Dragon Hall would probably go down in infamy in the 9th Underworld realm for 10,000 years, or even be removed because of this. In Sapphire Shaw's opinion, the best outcome would be for Zhuowen to fall in the internal tribulation. Then, Zhuowen, this variable, would not be a threat. Once Cao Rong left the eastern lands, everything would be foolproof if he carried out the plan. And his Blue Dragon Hall would definitely become the true ruler of the 9th Underworld realm, ruling over the life and death of the other underworld realms. The leaders of the other 6 underworld realms also calmed down and coldly looked at the tribulation clouds that were still brewing. Right now, their thoughts were similar to Sapphire Shaw's. They were also waiting for the internal tribulation. If Zhuowen died in the internal tribulation, that would be the best outcome. Of course, if this kid showed any signs of passing the internal tribulation, they would use thunderous methods and attack together to eliminate Zhuowen, this future threat. Chapter 1495. 9 Sun Lightning Tribulation Boom. 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 The tribulation clouds that had calmed down suddenly let out ear-piercing explosions. Soon after, everyone was shocked to discover that the tribulation clouds were emitting dazzling golden light. The golden light constantly surged and flashed within the black tribulation clouds, forming bolts of golden lightning. Boom. The golden lightning became denser and denser. Eventually, the countless dark clouds in the center of the tribulation clouds began to rotate clockwise, forming a violent vortex. At the center of the vortex, the dazzling golden light stimulated everyone's eyes. Moreover, the golden light was growing larger and brighter. Finally, when the golden light finally appeared in front of everyone's eyes, they were shocked to discover that the owner of the golden light was a giant golden sun that was several thousand feet wide. The surface of this golden sun was surging with terrifyingly hot magma. If one were to look closely, they would see that the magma was formed by golden lightning. Because the golden lightning was too small and densely packed, if one didn't look closely, they would think that it was flowing golden lava. Scorching sun lightning tribulation? Looking at the enormous golden sun formed by countless golden lightning, Cao Rong's eyes narrowed and she couldn't help but exclaim. Not only Cao Rong, but even Ji Ning, who was beside her, had a serious expression. The scorching sun lightning tribulation was formed by countless golden lightning. The terrifying sun was completely formed by tiny golden lightning. Its power was so terrifying that it could directly kill a void profound saint. Even a nirvana profound saint in the second mystic would be in a difficult situation under this scorching sun lightning tribulation. This saint tribulation was indeed terrifying. It's actually the scorching sun lightning tribulation? Yang Ji, Lu Hantian, and the others stood on the square platform of the divine spectre realm with worried expressions. The scorching sun lightning tribulation was a terrifying tribulation among the saint tribulations. The scorching sun lightning tribulation shouldn't be able to do anything to Zhuowen. After all, this kid defeated Qing Longzi. Why would he be afraid of a mere scorching sun lightning tribulation? Yang Yi lazily said. His drowsy eyes fell on the tribulation clouds above Zhuowen's head, and there was a hint of thought-provoking in his eyes. Jian Mu stood beside Yang Yi. The 9 golden lines between his brows were still shining. Even now, he still hadn't digested the golden lines between his brows. It was as if he was waiting for something. Yang Yi is right. Although Zhuowen has yet to become a sage, he already has the strength of a profound sage. He should be able to survive the burning sun thunder tribulation. Yang Ji nodded in agreement. Lu Hantian, Wu Dai, and the others were worried, but they knew that Yang Yi was telling the truth. After all, Zhuowen's battle prowess had already been completely revealed earlier. Even an expert at the profound glimpse saint stage like Qing Longzi wasn't his match. Logically speaking, the scorching sun lightning tribulation should indeed be unable to do anything to Zhuowen. Boom. Just when everyone thought that Zhuowen's internal tribulation was the scorching sun thunder tribulation, the tribulation clouds in the sky became denser and denser, almost covering the entire 9 nether heaven. Then, under everyone's shocked gazes, 8 huge whirlpools appeared on the surface of the tribulation clouds. A 10,000-foot large golden sun descended from each vortex. Including the golden sun that had appeared earlier, there were a total of 9 dazzling golden suns below the tribulation clouds. This isn't the scorching sun thunder tribulation, but the 9 suns thunder tribulation, which is even more terrifying than the scorching sun thunder tribulation. Cao Rong was finally moved. His gaze was as if he had seen a ghost. The scorching sun thunder tribulation was already extremely rare, but now, the 9 suns thunder tribulation, which was even more powerful than the scorching sun thunder tribulation, had descended. As the name implied, the 9 suns thunder tribulation was a terrifying tribulation formed by 9 scorching sun golden thunder tribulations. A scorching sun golden thunder tribulations was enough to kill an ordinary profound sage, and the 9 suns thunder tribulation could already kill a peak profound sage. Even a Heaven Yin sage who had just entered the Heaven Sage realm wouldn't dare to face a terrifying tribulation like the 9 suns thunder tribulation. This kid is dead for sure. Cao Rong came back to his senses and stared at the figure sitting cross-legged in the middle of the square with a complicated gaze. If it was just the scorching sun thunder tribulation, perhaps Zhuowen would be able to pass it smoothly. However, the tribulation that had appeared now was the higher level 9 suns thunder tribulation. In Cao Rong's view, even if Zhuowen's talent was extraordinary, it was still impossible for him to pass the 9 suns thunder tribulation. Haha. The heavens are really helping me. It's actually the 9 suns thunder tribulation. This kid has really suffered the wrath of the heavens. He's dead for sure. Sapphire Shaw raised his head and laughed, his eyes full of joy. Even he didn't expect that what Zhuowen was going to pass was an extremely terrifying tribulation like the 9 suns thunder tribulation. 9 was the extreme number, and any tribulation that was linked to 9 was extremely terrifying. Not far from Sapphire Shaw, Wu Hu, Undying Old Monster, and the other masters of the 6 major forces also let out a sigh of relief. Although Zhuowen had yet to enter the Saint Realm, he was still a great threat to them. They all wanted to get rid of him as soon as possible. If it wasn't for the restrictions of the 9th Underworld Sky platform, they would have already rushed in and torn Zhuowen into pieces. But now that the 9 suns thunder tribulation had appeared, they all relaxed because they knew that under such a tribulation, Zhuowen was dead for sure. 9 suns thunder tribulation, how can this Zhuowen's saint tribulation be so terrifying? This is the rhythm of being punished by the heavens. Even the heavens don't want to tolerate him. The surrounding martial artists all revealed looks of astonishment, and an uproar overflowed in all directions like an avalanche. Creak. Yang Ji clenched his fists as his eyes widened in disbelief. Even the indifferent Yang Yi's face froze as his eyes slowly narrowed. 9 suns thunder tribulation, this. What should we do? We have to help Zhuowen. Lu Hantian said in a panic. Yang Ji took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, right now, we can only wait and see. After all, the saint tribulation is Zhuowen's own. We outsiders can't interfere at all. Once we interfere, I'm afraid all of you will suffer. Hearing this, Lu Hantian frowned slightly. He had also undergone the saint tribulation before and knew that this was the tribulation of the person undergoing the tribulation. No one else could interfere at all. Once they interfered, it would probably increase the power of the saint tribulation. Under the gazes of everyone, the 9 suns thunder tribulation under the tribulation clouds began to slowly descend, gradually approaching the 9th Underworld Sky platform. 9,000 feet long blazing golden thunder tribulations were currently revolving in the form of a ring. Countless golden thunder tribulations were constantly exploding, as if even space was about to explode and be annihilated into powder. Even the many martial warriors who were far away from the 9th Underworld Sky platform could feel the terrifying heavenly might emitted by the 9 suns thunder tribulation. It was an aura of destruction, the smell of death. Lord Cao Rong, should we temporarily avoid the danger? As the 9 blazing suns approached, Ji Ning, who was standing beside Cao Rong, surged with powerful immortal qi, barely resisting the pressure of the 9 suns thunder tribulation. At this moment, Saint Qi surged around Cao Rong's body, but he did not feel anything wrong. After all, he was a saint of the Yang Sky Sacred Realm, and his strength was much stronger than a profound saint master like Ji Ning. Even if Cao Rong faced the 9 suns thunder tribulation head-on, he would probably not suffer much damage. Leave the 9th Underworld Sky platform first. I'll stay here. I want to see if Zhuowen can survive the 9 suns thunder tribulation. If he can, I'll immediately write a recommendation letter. Cao Rong's eyes shone brightly as he stared at the figure still sitting cross-legged in the square. There was a thought-provoking look in his eyes. 9 suns thunder tribulation? Zhuowen suddenly opened his eyes. In the depths of his spiritual sea, cracks began to appear on the surface of the golden cocoon. Zhuowen, after surviving the 9 suns thunder tribulation, this Xiaohei dog will be able to completely break out of the cocoon. At that time, it will reveal the true power of the Great Abyss Saint Dragon. In Zhuowen's spiritual sea, Cheng Huang was guarding the golden cocoon as it spoke softly to Zhuowen. 4-kill sword formation. Zhuowen did not dare to be negligent and immediately summoned the 4-kill sword formation. At the same time, he reached out with his right hand, and the 9-star 8 trigram spear appeared in his palm. At the same time, Golden light burst out from his body as he raised the power of his saint body to the extreme. The surface of his body was covered with dense golden veins. After doing all this, Zhuowen used the 7 emotions precious seal to raise his battle strength to another level. Ghost wheel, daytime golden wheel, dragon head saber, come out. After doing all this, Zhuowen still felt that it was not safe. With a wave of his right hand, he summoned the profound saint artifacts that he had snatched from Gui Sho, Shueizhe, and Qing Longzi. Although Zhuowen had not completely refined these 3 profound saint artifacts, he could use his saint energy to arrange them around his body to form a saint artifact defense. Seeing the 3 profound saint artifacts, the undying old monster, Huang Mo, and Sapphire Shaw's faces turned gloomy. Obviously, Zhuowen taking out these 3 profound saint artifacts was a slap in the face to their 3 forces. It reminded them of Shueizhe, Gui Sho, and Qing Longzi who had been killed by Zhuowen. The 9 Suns Thunder Tribulation has 9 blazing sun golden thunderbolts. From the 1st to the 9th sun, each sun is more terrifying than the last. I wonder how many suns this Zhuowen will be able to withstand. Cao Rong observed with great interest. Whoosh! As soon as Cao Rong's voice fell, the first blazing sun golden thunderbolt fell from the sky at an extremely fast speed. Wherever it passed, golden thunderbolts exploded and stretched across the sky like a long golden thunderbolt bridge. Boom! Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly. With a stomp of his feet, the power of his saint body exploded. The entire 9 nether sky platform trembled, causing many martial artists to exclaim in shock. They were shocked by Zhuowen's physical strength. Whoosh! Zhuowen shot towards the first sun like an arrow that had left the bow. In front of the 1,000-foot blazing sun golden thunderbolt, Zhuowen's figure was as small as an ant. However, he was not afraid and threw out a punch. Boom! This punch carried the power of 1,000 catties. When the punch was thrown out, the void within 10,000 feet of the blazing sun golden thunderbolt collapsed inch by inch, forming a black ring-shaped collapse. Bang! 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 Boom! Boom! The moment the first sun was destroyed, another 2 blazing sun golden thunderbolts fell from the sky. These 2 blazing sun golden thunderbolts were even bigger than before. They were already 2,000 feet in size. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.